iRacing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top here!
Oh my god! Oh! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
It's very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, here we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Welcome one and welcome all to SimSpeed TV, where today we've got a crucial round here of the International Division of the Majors Series. It's the 2.4 hours of Spa racing into the night at the magnificent Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps with the Endurance Pits layout in GT3 machinery. What a fantastic race we've got coming up here tonight, the 9th round of the International Division. It's been a long and hard-fought championship so far between Cameron Dance and Thomas Hinz, and it could certainly be a bit of a flashpoint tonight with both of those guys being very quick in GT3 machinery. But Harold Stadler, third in practice and third in the standings, could certainly throw a spanner into the works. I'm Reese Gardner. With me in the commentary box is Ryan Jones. Once again, welcome back to the booth for the Majors. Ryan sat out for a couple of rounds thanks to real life commitments, but you're back in here for the Spa 2.4, and what a place to be.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough old race, this one, isn't it? 2.4 hours. We're actually just racing into the morning here. They've been practicing through some dark skies with no lighting around this Spa circuit. Your way is illuminated purely by your own headlights. It's quite tough, actually, to pick out any of your braking markers and such. And it means the track's actually been quite cold for these guys right through practice. It's going to heat up quite quickly throughout the course of this race, which is going to provide an extra challenge for our field. But we've got a strong field, a big turnout for this race, so a lot of action ahead of us and plenty of intrigue when it comes to strategy as well. They have to make 2 pit stops, Reese, but it's not clear cut as to when they are going to be, and it's not just straight 2 full fuel loads either. You're gonna be able to play around a bit in terms of how much fuel you take in one of those stops.
Indeed. We'll go through the strategy information in just a little bit, but first off, we got to highlight the charity that we're supporting for this round. Every driver's pre-qualification attempt carries a fee with it, which goes straight to the charity, and we are supporting the Hunger Project for this round. They run programs in communities in Africa, South Asia, and Latin America. They've reached 16 million people in nearly 15,000 communities worldwide. They're a global non-profit working for the sustainable end of hunger, trying their best to end hunger and poverty. If you're interested in supporting this cause, and we really recommend that you do, head on over to thp.org and lend your support. Now let's take a look at the track we're going to be racing at here tonight. The Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, what more can you say about it that hasn't already been said? It is one of the most iconic racetracks in the entire world that run from the La Source hairpin down to the magnificent uphill sweepers of Eau Rouge, Radillon, and then down through the middle sector. What a brilliant track this is. Almost just over 7 kilometers in length, with plenty of turns and plenty of passing opportunities, particularly down there at the chicane, at the La Source hairpin, down at Lecombe and Malmedy, and also into Campus and Le Fagné, the chicane in the middle sector. But passing is going to be difficult through that double left-hander of Pouon, Ryan. That's a very quick turn, and even with the 4-tire off-track notification system that's been implemented for this track, the drivers are still going to have to be careful of track limits through there.
They are. I do enjoy the new off-track implementation here. It's quite forgiving in some areas, but certainly you've got to watch out for it when you run wide. It's a fearsome circuit, twisting and winding its way through the forest here in Belgium, and some flat-out corners that, if you're just a little bit off your line, will see you spearing into the fence. Eau Rouge and Radillon, they're flat out when you get it right. Blanchimont as well, flat out. Pouon it's not flat out. You've definitely got to lift off in these cars, but it is incredibly fast, the mid-corner speed at that double apex corner. So you've got some incredibly quick places around this track, but you've also got those chicanes as well. The back chicane leading up to the start-finish line and at the end of the Kemmel Straight as well, Reese. They both offer up passing opportunities coming at the end of big straights where draft and subsequent slipstreaming is going to be a factor. So, potential overtaking opportunities there, places to look out for in the race. Let's have a look, though, at how, after 8 rounds of racing, our championships stack up.
Indeed, Thomas Hinz only 21 points behind the New Zealander Cameron Dance in the lead of the championship. Meanwhile, Dance's teammate, the Austrian Harold Stadler, on 249 points. That championship gap can certainly swing either way, depending on how these drivers go tonight. Gotta give big props to Dwayne Burns as well in the Avatar Auto Racing team. 4th place in the standings at the moment, but only 10 points ahead of Alexander Sheridan. It could certainly swing either way there as well. We are a truly international division here with Americans, Austrians, Europeans, all competing here along with the Aussies and the Kiwis. The sportsman standings, it's very close here between Brad Klenk and JM Thomas. They are absolutely dead even on points, and both of these guys are going to be a little bit back in the field here tonight. There's certainly be some chaos with 40 cars out on track here.
Not only Clank and Thomas level on points, but the top 10 are all within touching distance of each other. There's just 48, 100, oh, you know what I mean, 50,
yeah.
50, about 40 points. Oh no, my mind's got in a meltdown.
42, I think.
42. There's 42 points covering 10 drivers. And you can pick that up in one race almost, can't you, Reese? So,
yeah,
it's incredibly tight. Any 10 of them could win the championship in Sportsman. So, huge fight to watch throughout the last portion of the season there.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll go to the team's standings now, and tell you what, in the pro team standings, this is after round 8, although it does say round 7. Kinetic International Pro, they are not that far ahead of TechSense Fitstyle Motorsport. These two teams have been battling hard at the top of the standings. Kinetic leading the championship after a bit of a delayed start to the season for them after the unfortunate passing of their founder, John King, who we continue to honour by racing for John this season of the majors. But I tell you what, Middle Finger Racing Pro is still in it as well with that 40-ish point gap between them, and that could certainly go either way too. Rival Auto Sport, bit of a far way behind, but tell you what, if they have a good race here tonight, they might be able to elevate themselves a little bit further in the second half of this season. Looking forward to seeing how the Kinetic versus Fitstyle Motorsport battle continues here tonight. But as I said, Ryan, Middle Finger, they are right there with them too.
Certainly are. Over in Sportsman, it's been the story of one team, hasn't it? The Gentlemen's Sim Racing Club leading the way on 514 points, but look how close it is for the rest of the spots in this order. 294 points for Middle Finger Racing Sports White, and then 130 points for 10th place Missed Apex F1 Podcast Team International. So 164 points, that was easier, covering those 9 teams from the battle for P2, when it looks like P1 might be settled barring disaster. So plenty of action in Sportsman again in the team standings this time.
Absolutely. We've got plenty of tough competition being run in this series. And let's take a look as just before we go into the race, what we might see in terms of strategy. These GT3 cars can go an hour, maybe a bit over, depending on how much you save fuel. But when do you pit? This race is 2 hours and 25 minutes in length, so there's going to have to be one short stint there somewhere. Do you take it at the start, between your 2 longer stints in the middle, or do you short fill it at the end? And tyres are going to be something to consider as well. You did mention, Ryan, that the track is going to be heating up as the race continues on into these morning conditions, but we've heard some insider information that a couple of drivers might attempt the race entirely tyre-free, and tyres and fuel are done separately in pit stops, and with the long pit lane delta of about 55 seconds, you want to spend as little time stopped as possible.
Yeah, you do. I think the delta, it more comes into play when you have to pit more than once, though, because once you're in pit lane, you're in pit lane. You're going to do the delta, aren't you? So if you're in pit lane to take fuel, it's just a case of, am I taking tyres as well or not? As we take a look at the starting grid, we'll talk more about strategy later. Let's get ready to start this 2.4 hours of Spa.
Absolutely, and it's going to be Sean Campbell on pole with Harold Stadler sharing the front row with him in the Ford GT3. Thomas O'Leary and championship leader Cameron Dance share the second row with Ethan Bass and Blake Neck. Rounding out the top 6, Matt Andrews and Thomas Hins are going to start 7th and 8th, with the top 10 rounded out by Eric Intilli and Daniel Stevens. Great performances from both of those guys in pre-qualifying, with Alexander Sheridan and Scott Newton rounding out the top 12.
Simon Mizzomo will line up from P13 with Dwayne Burns alongside him. Jack Stiles from the UK and Shane Bowen on row 8. Dean Moll out of the USA and Will Leslie on row 9. Row 10 goes the way of John Sorensen and Jonathan Bain. Gavin Barber, Brad Clank, Damon Stockton and Mitchell Bales run out your first 12 rows of cars.
Adrian Steffen's going to start out at P25 alongside Jake Fox for Kinetic, Phil Otto and Dean Alessi 27th and 28th, with rounding out the top 30 Peter Vostrel and J.M. Thomas. Then we got Danny Vassal and Jake Manhire on row 16. Johnny Bell and the Belgian Pierre Cousin. This is his home race. He starts out there on row 17. Ryan DeCartier-McCarthy and Adam Cahill rounding out the 36 positions. The field rounded out by Sean O'Hara, Julian Mookie, Connor Brown, Sean Reese, Mark Newton and Philip Morton on the final spot on the grid. We're about to get a start on here as they come out of La Source to get the start here down to Eau Rouge and Radillon. The pace car is in and Sean Campbell has decided to go early in the Audi. Harold Stadler is going to have to protect from the advances of Thomas O'Leary in the Lamborghini. Cameron Dance has to yield to O'Leary in his Porsche as they come into Eau Rouge and Radillon for the first time. 2 hours and 25 minutes remain in this race. They are single file coming out of the hill onto the Kemmel Straight. We're already seeing a bit of a peak here from Harold Stadler. Up the inside of Sean Campbell, getting racy early on here at the 2.4 hours of Spa. Sean Campbell a bit later on the brakes there as Cameron Dance, trying to defend fourth position from Blake Neck, manages to cover him as they come into the twisty middle sector. Looking at one of the Kinetic Ferraris, meanwhile, back there in the field. That looks like Eric Intilli, who's now heading up a big pack of cars as Scott Newton's just made his way past him. But Sean Campbell in control at the moment.
Strong start, very evenly matched, and as always, they closed right up the end of that Kemmel Straight. When they're all so close exiting Radillon, there's no getting away, is there, into that first chicane. But Campbell does enough, and Stadler struggling through Pouon. O'Leary all over the back of him here, and this is a Ford up against a Lamborghini. What I love about GT racing is all the different different manufacturers. We've got an Audi leading the way from a Ford, and then a Lamborghini, then 2 Porsches just in behind.
Rounding out the top 5 there, and it seems that the Porsche and the Lamborghini, very popular car choices here, but we do have a Mercedes, a McLaren driven by Daniel Stevens, and a couple of BMWs thrown into the mix, as well as a couple of Ferraris. It's fantastic to see the wide variety of cars here on the run at down to Blanchimont, and then the bus stop chicane here at the end of the lap, focusing on Daniel Stevens, who currently occupies 9th place out on track as they all close up coming into the bus stop chicane. A bit of a pass there. That's Jack Stiles trying to make a move on Alexander Sheridan, but nothing doing there through the chicane. Sheridan comes back on him, and the headlight flash already on there from Jack Stiles. He wants to make up those positions. Looks to me like a slowdown penalty potentially for Dean Moll. He's had to let by a couple of cars coming into La Source.
If you're not getting an off track, you're getting a slowdown here at Spa. And the slowdowns can be pretty brutal if you get them just before one of the straights as well, because you'll cost yourself an absolute ton of momentum. Blake Neck just got himself a slowdown over at Radillon. And now, look at that. That's a perfect example. Look at all of the time he's losing. He was
Stevens
running
too.
And now he's outside of the top 10. Yep, look at that. Stevens as well, tumbling down the order.
down into 16th place now, 17th as the Ferrari makes a move around the outside. So Daniel Stevens is going to be none too happy with that. That's Dean Moll just up ahead of him there. Moll recovering from his own slowdown that we talked about just before. He's already trying to make his way back past us. That looks like Eric Antilli with a massive lack of pace there through the Bruxelles corner. Has to stay to the inside. There's a problem there for him. He might have gotten another slowdown. Dean Moll too. These guys are dropping like flies.
Just going to have a look at what happened to Dean Moll here.
As we check out Brad Klenk and Mitchell Bales. Bales trying up the inside of Klenk there in the Gentleman's Sim Racing Club Ferrari. And the over-under might be happening here through Jackie Ick's corner, but a little bit too wide there for Mitchell Bales. He's going to have to wait a few more corners. Just up the front, it looks like Sean Campbell has really skipped away from Harold Stadler, and there's some massive pressure on Stadler from Thomas O'Leary in the Kinetic Lamborghini, trying his best here through Blanchimont. Let's see how they go.
He had a look here on lap 1, did O'Leary, on the brakes. He wasn't quite close enough to make it work, and again on lap 2, it certainly looks as if O'Leary is the faster out of these two drivers. He's just struggling to find a way by. Stadler may feel that O'Leary's only there because of the draft that he's benefiting from. O'Leary might feel that he is genuinely quicker. Now, just to go back to Dean Moll, what I think we saw was a couple different strategies as to how you clear the slowdown. Blake Neck, Daniel Stevens, they got out of the way and cleared it instantly. Another way you can do it, and a way that I like to do it myself, Reese, is you try and gradually clear it. So you just lift off a little bit through the straight, lift off a bit early into the corners, and try to clear it gradually before you run out of the timer, and you can actually get away with losing a bit less time in doing so. The risk you run is not clearing it in time. Dean Moll might have made that mistake and not cleared it in time in trying to do so.
Yeah, he's in the pit lane at the moment, demonstrating this very long pit lane that combines the Grand Prix and Classic pits. So that's going to be unfortunate for him. It looks to me like Harold Stadler is still holding on there to second, as there's a problem for Jonathan Bain in the Middle Finger Racing Mercedes. That's a spin off the track there at Le Combe, which is an easy place to make a mistake, especially when you're going side by side. Let's check it out on the Virtual Racing School replay. So down here into the turn they go. It looks like Daniel Stevens just up ahead of him there, teammate in the McLaren. What happened here to Jonathan? It looks to me like just a little bit offline, and the rear end broke away from him into the wall, but that's not a huge hit. He can continue from that.
Yeah, I doubt he'll even need to take his spare car, because that was a pretty light and straight hit, wasn't it? He'll get away with that, and he'll continue on. A long way to go on this race. He will hate that mistake, but it could have been worse. As we ride on board with Eric Antilli, he is still applying the pressure, hunting for a way by Gavin Barber.
Fantastic view here.
It might come at the end of the straight race, down at the chicane after Blanchimont. Needs to get the run through Blanchimont, and it can be tricky in the dirty air, can't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. When you come into this very fast left-hander, you've got to be careful of the brakes as well on board here with our driver of Gavin Barber running that full motion setup, and you'll see as he comes through the bus stop chicane, there's quite a bit of ricketing around that these drivers have to deal with over those sausage curbs at the end of the lap. They did take the start on the classic start-finish straight, but the lap times are set, and the checkered flag will be waved here on the Grand Prix start-finish straight. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that. Back up to the front, meanwhile, the battle for second. Thomas O'Leary still keeping with Harold Stadler, but it looks like the Austrian is starting to get away from the Lamborghini here. Let's see what Thomas O'Leary can do in the middle sector. He's still got a healthy gap behind to Cameron Dance, Thomas Hins, and Ethan Bass in the Fitstyle Motorsport Ford. It seems that Blake Neck has suffered a few problems on those opening laps. He's fallen back behind Scott Newton and currently occupies 9th place.
Well, he had that slowdown, didn't he, over at Radion? And he was one of the drivers that cleared it straight away with Daniel Stevens and escaped the penalty as a result.
Absolutely. Scott Newton now defending in the Apex Racing Lamborghini as Dean Moll out of the pits now after serving what we presume is a penalty for failing to clear a slowdown. That's full drive-through with 80 seconds spent in the lane. He probably would have taken a pit stop there as well, as Danny Vassell is in the lane now early as well. With some pretty heavy damage there.
Just thinking on that pit stop for Dean Moll, I'm not sure how that helps him at all, really, pitting. I mean, obviously, I think you have to pit because of how big the delta is. Back to my point I was making just before we got to the starting grid, because the delta is so long, once you're in the lane, you almost have to pit because you're losing so much time. And as a result, on the tyre factor of that, it doesn't really matter too much in terms of, the argument that I shouldn't take tyres because the delta is so long. Well, you're in pit lane anyway. It doesn't matter. You either take the extra 20 seconds of tyres or not. Delta doesn't factor in, does it?
No, not hugely, but you know, that time spent at a standstill in the pits is time lost out on track anyway. So
yes,
if you can try and minimise that as much as possible, then you'll be in a good position. Check back in with Clink and Bales here, 22nd and 23rd, and Clink pushing hard here to try and gap the BMW, but it doesn't seem like it's happening for the time being. Again, the middle finger racing cars, some of the most striking ones out there on track. I'm happy that we're racing here at sunrise as the track gradually gets brighter and we can see more of these fantastic liveries as down into La Source they go. Very tight hairpin blind through there. If there's a car spun just on the exit, you won't be able to see it until it's too late, but fortunately, there have been no such dramas so far. The majority of drivers have been very calm and collected here at the start of this race, and what a magnificent piece of racetrack this is. Up through Eau Rouge and Radillon, and then down the Kemmel Straight. As you mentioned, Ryan, if you get the line right and your tyres are up to temperature, you got a light fuel load, that is flat out in a GT3 car, and that's a good run there for Bales.
Pulls to the inside. Bit of a late braking manoeuvre, that one. A very shallow entry to the corner. Had to pull the car up a bit more than he wanted to. And Clank challenged him, pitched him down into the corner, and they resumed their battle for a little while longer. Further up in the timing sheets, Thomas Hins trying to find a way by Cameron Dance. Both of these guys running around in Porsches, and up the road you can see O'Leary still on the back of Stadler. He had a little look at the end of the Camel Straight, couldn't find a way by. Hins will be desperately trying to avoid falling into the trap that O'Leary's falling into here, which is getting stuck behind a car you're potentially quicker than. So let's see what he does. Through Blanchimont, he lifted off quite a bit on the entry, maybe trying to get a good exit, but it hasn't worked out for him. Dance kept up his speed very nicely through there.
Yeah, he did, and I think Thomas Hins also dealing with a little bit of dirty air from Cameron Dance too. These GT3 cars, they don't produce as much aerodynamic downforce and disturbance as an open wheeler, but they still have a fairly large amount of dirty air behind another car. So Hinsey obviously struggling a little bit with understeer, and these two guys are battling for the championship lead as well, don't forget. So they want to try and give each other as much space as possible, because if they end up coming together, then that's going to be big dramas for the title fight. So let's see what Hins can do here down the Kemmel Straight. He's in the draft here of Cameron Dance's. Stadler going defensive against O'Leary just up ahead. That is the top five there, all in the same shot, and out pulls Hins for a bit of a look at Dance, but Cameron has the turn-in point, he has the line, and the Craig set up shock. Porsche, number 52, has to stay behind.
Thought it was the Colonel from KFC.
God. Colonel Sanders. Craig A. Williams.
From a distance.
Yeah, indeed. I'd expect Richard Hampstead to be running a KFC car if he decided to jump into the majors. Meanwhile, that battle between Clink and Bales still going off here. Clink going defensive against the middle finger BMW. Bales is going to have the outside line, but he just about had to yield to Clink. No, he doesn't, and sends Clink into the wall.
It's too early to be going defensive, isn't it? Yeah. I think Brad Clink brought that on himself. he went offensive, and then he squeezed Bales really hard on the next apex. I'm not quite sure that was worth fighting for.
Yeah, you can see that Bales had quite a bit of overspeed there coming down the Kemmel Straight, and a little bit later on the brakes too. Clenk with the narrower turn in. That was really only one way that incident was going to go. Fortunately, these guys do have a spare car, so with that rear damage, the Ferrari will probably be producing a bit less downforce through that diffuser. Clenk would probably do well to go into the pits, as that's a big incident there through Pouon for one of the Lamborghinis. Who on earth is that? It's Ryan DeCartier McCarthy. He already had some problems on lap 1, and it looks like those problems have continued.
He did this all by himself as well. Just couldn't keep that rear end in check, trying to head through the Pouon, and he lost the rear at 160 kilometers an hour and managed to actually keep it out of the Armco on the inside. So he did a good job there. He'll keep ploughing on, but a lot further down the order than he would have liked to be. Back on board with Harold Stadler, looking out the rear end of this Ford, the Lamborghini that still pounces on from behind. Probably too far back this lap is O'Leary. And let's talk a little bit about the fuel saving that O'Leary will be able to do. Because while he is probably trying to pass him, he may also be aware that he's saving some fuel here. He doesn't have to go full throttle down the straight, so that tow will pull him along just a little bit. As his teammate Sheridan is also on the attack here. Around the outside, just not quite far enough up to pull that one off. Because as we mentioned, you need 2 stops to get home, Reese. One of them is for a full tank of fuel. The other one, you only need about 40 litres from what we heard. So the more you save, the shorter that second stop.
Yeah, exactly. And question is, when do you take that second shorter stop? Do you take it when you do your first stop to gain a little bit of track position and a bit of clear air, hopefully, that you might be able to take advantage of towards the end? Or do you decide to go long in the middle stint and just do the short one at the end? There's going to be a lot of drivers thinking about that throughout this race, as Thomas Hins up the inside of Dance at Campus Corner has a bit of an attempt, but Dance holding it round the outside. Hinsey is getting desperate here to try and get past his championship rival.
Ethan Bass as well is about to join this fight and make it a 3-way tussle for 4th, and that might be what is edging Hinsey on to get this one done as quickly as he can, because he doesn't want to lose a spot to Bass, who is teammates to Dance. He doesn't want to get caught in a Fitz-die sandwich. Oh, you see that in his mirrors, his rear view camera in the middle of his dashboard. How much that Bass closed up in the braking zone for the final chicane. He'll do the same again down the Kemmel Straight.
What a view there. Nearly bumper to bumper coming into La Source. That's what we like to see. Now, this is a proper 3-way fight for 4th now. I think you could even call it a 4-way fight with the Mercedes of Matt Andrews there in P7 just behind. These guys have a reasonable gap behind to Blake Neck, who's continuing to recover from that slowdown. He's made his way back past Scott Newton and is continuing to motor on forward. 2 minutes 17.6 on the last lap for Blake Neck, but Sean Campbell holding the fastest lap so far. 2 minutes 17 flat, as there's Thomas Hins up the inside of Cameron Dance into Lacombe, and Dance knows that that move is done and dusted, has to yield. So Hinsey up into 4th place, and well, it's not going to give him the lead of the championship at this stage, but it'll certainly decrease the gap if he can hold on to that position over Dance.
Tell you what, that Porsche of Cameron Dance is trimmed out. Hinsey was right up in his slipstream, and he only just got to him at the end of the Kemmel Straight to make that move. Aided a bit by the fact that Dance actually lifted off slightly early. So Texans have got a lot of straight line into their Porsche setup, as down the order, here's Newton and Clenk fighting it out. Clenk down in 27th now after his incident with Mitchell Bales.
We check out the number 5 of Alexander Sheridan, who's trying his best to chase down Jack Stiles there in the Fitz-die Mercedes. He's also got Shane Bowen and Will Leslie up behind him, another Kinetic teammate there. Shane Bowen holding on very nicely to the position he's in, currently 13th right now. Dwayne Burns, Bowen's teammate, a bit further back in 16th place, having lost 2 positions there. But it seems that the Avatar Auto Racing guys are holding on very well to their positions in the midfield as Dirty Air comes in again. You can use a bit more of that runoff area now thanks to the 4-tyre off-track detection, as the battle here between the 2 MFR teammates, both German, one BMW, one Mercedes. Let's see what happened here between them. So the Mercedes making its way through Fanye, and this probably was a clean overtake here. The Mercedes having to let by the BMW just up ahead, and just pulls over to let his teammate go.
Good teamwork. Now, I'm just looking at the trimmed out Porsche of Dance, and he is lifted right off to keep himself behind Hins.
Fuel saving time activate.
Yep. Really impressive straight line. It's a good tactic, isn't it, Reece? Sorry to cut you off there.
No, all good, all good. Sorry for cutting you off. It's I was going to say, yeah, it is a good option here for Cameron Dance. You know, running that trimmed out rear wing, he can afford to do a big lift at the end of the Kimmel Straight. Go to another virtual racing school replay here just to see something that's gone on for P2 between Stadler and O'Leary. It is a change for positions. Thomas O'Leary now up into second place. What has happened here for Harold Stadler, if anything? Looks like not a great run there off of Malmedy, and then into Bruzel. Up goes Sheridan on the inside with a bit of contact, and Stadler, I don't think, will be too happy with that one.
Stadler might not have been expecting him to throw it up the inside there, whereas O'Leary was just desperate for finally an opportunity to get by him.
Well, it looks like the gap has extended already, and Thomas O'Leary showing that he can get quite a bit of pace out of that Lamborghini. It's going to be a tough job to chase down Sean Campbell, though. Thomas O'Leary does have a higher I rating than Sean Campbell, but in these hosted events, I rating doesn't matter at all. All that matters is that pace, and it seems that O'Leary is not able to match Campbell on the laps that he was behind Stadler, but he's going to come across the line here after making that pass. Let's see what kind of pace he's gotten out of that. 2 minutes 17.141, and fastest car on track does match it. Excellent stuff.
Including a passing manoeuvre, so good signs for O'Leary. A passing manoeuvre, a negative to his lap time, but a positive was he had big slipstream down the Camel Straight, so this lap will be the big test of O'Leary's paces. That was a late dive from Leslie on Bowen. It didn't work out into the source, and now it'll compromise his run towards Eau Rouge, up Radillon and down the Camel Straight. That's why you can't afford to make dives at the source, because it compromises you all the way until you reach the end of the Camel Straight. It's out of pit lane comes Dean Moore just behind these guys, and you can see how awkward the pit exit is. It fires you right out onto a point of the racetrack where these cars are doing about 200 kilometers an hour, and if they're tucked into the slipstream of one another, they might not even see you until it's too late.
Dean Moll into the pits 3 times so far in this race. He has not had the best of runs so far. And one thing that you also saw down the Kimmel Straight is the massive difference in straight line speed between cars on track and cars that have just come out of the pits. Back to the battle for 4th place, meanwhile. These guys only covered by half a second or so. Thomas Hins, Cameron Dance, Ethan Bass, and Matt Andrews as they make their way past a lapped car, the MFR Mercedes. And that is Danny Vassell, who's making life a little bit difficult there for Ethan Bass on the exit of Fanye, which has brought Matt Andrews into the picture slightly. Vassell just trying his best to stay out of the way here, but it seems that he's not making life too easy for these drivers up here in the top. That's spaced them out just a little bit now. It's Hins, then Dance in their group, then we've got Bass and Andrews together as well. They're going to have to start thinking about Blake Neck as well, because he is rounding them up lap on lap. As I just saw a bit of a problem there for Vassell. Oh, he had a big problem through Blanchimont and almost collected Blake Neck, but very good driving there by Neck in the 42 to hold his throttle application and keep himself pretty much damage-free.
Yeah, that was it's pretty sketchy from Blake Neck's point of view, and certainly Blake is going to be someone to watch out for. Qualified 6th, was running 5th before his slowdown at Radion. So we know he's got good pace to run within the top 5. Just needs to get himself back there. The battle for P9, just behind him on the racetrack, about 5 seconds behind him. Maybe a little closer now, thanks to his big lift at Blanchimont last time by. Scott Newton leading this train of Mizomo, Jack Stiles, and Alexander Sheridan not too far behind either. So, yeah, 2 TechSense cars again.
Yeah, it looks to me like they're content to run line astern for now, but let's see what kind of pace they'll have over Scott Newton. Seems that there's another slowdown there for Daniel Stevens in the MFR McLaren, and this race has not been a good one for Daniel Stevens so far. He's been struggling a little bit with car handling, as you can see, and off tracks and slowdowns as well, down into 16th place at the moment. He has made up a couple of positions though. Yeah, love that flaming exhaust on the McLaren. It's one of the best parts of watching GT3 racing on iRacing as the battle for second continues here. It's actually a battle for, full-on battle for second, because O'Leary, it seems, has not been able to drop Harold Stadler. At the same time, Hinz and Dance have started to make up a bit of time here.
Hinsey is flying. He's the one that's really been unleashed after making his overtake. Leary might have made a little mistake on the previous lap. We'll see what this lap does for him, because his previous wasn't fantastic. It was a 17.9. That graphic on the screen was wrong. It was a 17.9, and Campbell, again, a 17.1. Campbell is so consistent out front. He's did a 17.0, 17.1, 17.1, now a 17.3. O'Leary just did a 17.3 then, after doing a 17.9. So he pulled away from Stadler by 4/10 that lap, but Thomas Hinz did a 17.1 that lap. So he was the quickest car out of the top 5, and that was his fastest lap of the race.
Fantastic stuff there for Thomas Hinz. Ethan Bass also setting his fastest lap so far. He's the fastest car on track this lap, 2 minutes 17.193. So keep an eye out for Ethan Bass in a few laps' time if he can keep that pace up. But Harold Stadler's going to have to look over his shoulder here in the group just up ahead of Bass there as they come down into Lacombe and Malmedy once again. Thomas O'Leary holding on to second place and keeping that gap nice and consistent, but it is a proper 3-car train now for third. Stadler, Hinz and Dance, with Hinsey the meat in the Fitzstye sandwich once more.
Go back to that P9 battle, because they've now caught Danny Vassell, and let's see if Danny makes this a little easier. He didn't make it hard, not on purpose. It's just tough when you're a lapped car. You don't want to heavily compromise your own race. He gets well out of the way. They caught him in a very convenient spot this time, where he's able to lift off before they get to any corners. So that was really good for those 3. Sheridan, the next car through, will be hoping for similar service as we see one car coming into the lane for service. This is Jake Fox. Now this could be scheduled.
We've got Brad Klenk and Jake Manhire in the pits as well. All of those guys making their way down onto the lane. Brad Klenk into the box for 10 seconds now, so it does look like he is taking some fuel here, and I reckon he's decided to run his short stint right at the start, thanks to that incident he had with Mitchell Bales, which set him further back. Now he can focus on stretching the car out over 2 long runs to the end, and I'm thinking Jake Fox and Jake Manhire are thinking the same thing. Klenk is now out of the pits, 19.5 seconds stopped in the box with a 1 minute 22 lane time.
That's our first scheduled stops of the day. I heard a radio message from Mizomo as well. He's not looking to pass Scott Newton, is what he said, although Newton just had an absolutely god-awful exit out of the source. So,
bumper to bumper coming up into Eau Rouge. That's not what you want to see as a driver. With these cars, you know, they're not the biggest of cars, but at the same time, if you have your view blocked, then it's going to be difficult as defensive line for Scott Newton, and Mazzomo keeping his promise there of staying behind as they all move over to the racing line for the braking zone. The Mercedes of Jack Stiles still keeping himself right in with this battle. Looks like Scott Newton is starting to lose a bit of pace here, having trouble keeping the momentum up through those slow corners like La Source, as you say, Ryan.
And the reason Mazzomo will be staying behind him is to save his fuel. He's a pretty smart racer, is Mazzomo. As the new fastest lap that time from Sean Campbell, a 16.9. First driver to dip into the 16s in the race. We saw it from a couple of drivers in practice, but that was under the cover of darkness. The track was quite a bit cooler. So Campbell is finding some good time out of the front, continuing to pull away from O'Leary. The gap is out to 6 seconds now. O'Leary is pulled away from Stadler. Hinds looking to find a way by that Ford.
Into Blanchimont they come then, and Hinsey will again be dealing with a bit of dirty air there, but he nails the apex and keeps up the momentum behind Stadler. Oh, had a hint of a move coming into the bus stop chicane, but elects to stay behind this time round. None of these guys going for the pit lane, so I would expect that these guys will be pitting at the hour in mark. We've had about half an hour elapsed so far in the race, so these guys still having quite a few laps to run before they make their way into the lane as they use all of the curb there on the exit of La Source. Bit of a runoff area there that's been included with the track's reconfiguration in 2007. A little bit more room to use on the exit. It used to be that you go right up against the wall coming out of that particular turn, but down the Kemmel Straight the walls are very close, and if there's a side-by-side bit of contact at high speed here, then both cars are going to be going straight into those walls. Stadler, though, keeping Hinds behind, and Hinsey, I think, just content to save a little bit of extra fuel through here in the middle sector as we're on board down the Kemmel Straight. On board one of the Porsches here, that is Simon Mazzomo behind Scott Newton. A big amount of opposite lock there. The Porsche, with a bit of a lively rear end, I have to say, with that flat six engine out over the rear axle.
Yeah, all the weight being distributed and placed over the rear end definitely makes it a bit of a beast to handle in the corners when you try to get the power down too early, as we catch a virtual racing school replay. This looks like Cartier McCarthy again.
Looks like he's wrecked, unfortunately, and might have happened here through Pouon. Oh, the rear end just getting away from him at the turn-in point, and coming to a stop on the racing line. Yep, that's what happens. That looks like one of the gentlemen Sim Racing Club Mercedes there. That's Sean Rees in the number 23 on his roof. So that's the first big incident we've seen in this race. Both Rees and Cartier McCarthy going to be coming back into the pits to repair some heavy damage. They should both still have their spare car, though, as it is on here for third place. Thomas Hinds trying his best to get by Harold Stadler, and Hinsey has been making up great positions here in the race. Pre-qualifying, obviously not reflecting his true pace, because in race conditions, Hinsey is an absolute monster.
He is. That incident for McCarthy, it was almost a carbon copy of his spin earlier on at Pouon, if you recall. Except in that one, earlier on in the race, when he spun, he ended up at the grass on the inside. Unfortunately this time, when he spun and became stranded in the middle of the racetrack, when you're going through a corner at high speed, there's simply no way to adjust your line when you're going that fast without wrecking yourself, and just nowhere for poor Sean Rees to go.
Meanwhile, the battle for the sportsman lead here, Stockton and Bales, just on the verge of the top 20, as Damon Stockton in the DPR, it seems, BMW, trying to hold off Bales, who is still recovering from the incident with Clank, and I mean, I say recover, he really got away with quite a bit in that incident. He's managed to keep going very nicely, but the draft is going to come into play here down the Kimmel Straight, and because they're both driving the same car, it's going to come down to who gets the best exit across the top of the hill first off, and who has the least amount of rear wing on that car. And you see the draft start to come into effect now on board here with Bales, but he's not making up a huge amount of time there on Stockton.
Stockton's trimmed out. He almost lost it actually, coming up to Radion. Is that a slow car?
Adrian Stefan.
Yes, it is.
Having to let this battle by, and oh no, that's a problem for Scott Newton as well. Coming through Pouon, has to avoid the curb because it's quite a harsh curb there on the exit of Pouon. You hit it wrong and your car's going up in the air. Let's see what happened to Newton here. Remember, he was trying to hold off Simon Mazzomo in the Fitzstyle Porsche, and it looks like pretty much what happened to Ryan DeCartier-McCarthy on the turn-in. The Lamborghini just snaps.
Maybe some of these guys dialed the brake bias forward just a touch. Damon Stockton. Well, I just said Stockton almost lost the rear coming through Eau Rouge and Radion. He was a touch too shallow on the turn-in. Tried to do too much with the steering wheel, and this time he's lost it on entry to Pouon.
Managed to get into the runoff area though, so that's good to see. No other cars involved in that incident. As we go back to the battle for third, Thomas Hins still monstering the back of Harold Stadler here, and on board with our P2 runner in the championship.
Gavin Barber's just had a big hit on the exit of Blanchimont. Jake Manhire has missed him by some work of a miracle, and that is going to require a spare car for Gavin Barber, who was running 19th in this race, up 2 spots from where he started, and he will bring that one straight into pit lane. Good news for him is he's done that right before the entrance to pit lane. Here's the VRS replay.
Well, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Here in the middle stages of the first stint, it is a good thing that he had this incident where he did. Otherwise, you know, it'd be difficult making it all the way around a lap. And it looks like just a little bit of instability there through Blanchimont and a big hit. And, oh, it was very close there for, was it Manhire, you said?
Yes.
Indeed. Well, Barber, not involving any other cars in that incident. And, of course, with heavy damage on the front, he'll be taking that spare car. Let's have another look here from Jake Manhire's perspective. You see Barber spinning just up ahead, and Manhire thinks, oh dear, tarmac runoff, thank you very much. Gets back onto the track with maybe a change of pants required at the pit stop, but other than that, completely fine.
Yeah, one of those split-second decisions. Do you go left or do you go right? You never really know where they're going to end up when they're wrecking in that sort of manner. He chose right in the end, and works out for him. So we go back to this battle. Thomas Hins still can't find a way by Harold Stadler. They're now about 1.5 seconds behind O'Leary, who's continuing to not make any inroads. He's 7.3 seconds behind Sean Campbell. So if Hins wants to get out maybe to the lead of this race, if he feels he's potentially got the pace to go to the lead of this race, judging by his lap times, if it's not being held up, he might have that pace. He needs to get it done quickly because eventually this gap will get too big for him. Currently, he's about 9 seconds away.
Yeah, indeed, Campbell is absolutely smashing it out there at the front, but Ethan Bass smashing it. He is the fastest car on track and with the fastest lap of the race. 2 minutes 16.8 for that Fitzstyle Ford, and I tell you what, I'm very impressed with Ethan Bass in this race so far. He's kept it consistent. He has lost 1 position there off the start, but at the same time, he's keeping up a good run of pace here behind Cameron Dance and picking up that draft very well.
Ooh, that's awkward. Damon Stockton and Jonathan Bain, didn't they both just spin at Hill in separate incidents? At least I know Stockton did. But they've just run into each other.
Oh dear.
On the run towards Blanchimont, the corner before it. And it sent Bain for a spin. Which is a very awkward incident.
Yeah, I've just taken a look at that myself, and looks like Jonathan Bain was wide coming out of Campus Corner and into Stavilo. So that's what triggered all of that, and there is the contact with Bean sent into a tank slapper and spinning off by the side of the track, fortunately. Plenty of space for other cars to avoid him, and Bean does the right thing there, reverses and then tries to re-enter the track as smoothly as he can. We haven't really seen any dangerous re-entries so far in this race, which is good to see. And I'll probably put the commentator's curse on, haven't I, Ryan?
Yeah, good job.
Yep.
I'm giving it 3 laps.
All right, the bet is on as J.M. Thomas, Adrian Steffen and Dean Alessi here in a 3-car fight for 22nd position. J.M. Thomas, one of the drivers that started quite far down in the field, started 30th place and now has made up 8 positions. Of course, we've had a few cars come into the pits with some crashes as well along the way. And it looks like Blake Neck has gotten by Cameron Dance there. There's a problem that's happened somewhere around that lap for Cameron, our championship leader. And he's been blinking. A couple of technical issues for Dance. Yeah.
He was sitting behind Thomas Hins pretty comfortably, wasn't he? In that P5 spot. Well, Ethan Bass now occupies that. Andrew 6, Neck 7, from Dance down to P8. So that's valuable time lost for our series leader. With Hins on the charge forward, we could see a change at the top of the points at the end of today's race if things continue moving the way they are currently. As we take a look down the hill and a quick rise up across the river that is Eau Rouge, and then across the top that is Radion. This is Shane Bowen, Will Leslie, Dwayne Burns fighting for P13.
Indeed it is, and it looks to me like Ethan Bass also lost some time in the midst of all of that. He's very far behind that third place battle, but Bowen, Leslie and Burns, it's another meat in the sandwich situation, as that looks like Scott Newton. He's gone off at the exit of Lacombe and into Malmedy. Let's see what happened then in virtual racing school replay. The Lamborghini, a bit like the Audi, not the best over the curbs, and it looks to me like Newton just took a bit too much there on the entry, got into the grass, and the rear end just went around. I mean, it doesn't matter what car you're driving at that stage. If you get the rear end of the grass on turning, you're gone.
Yeah, it's a pretty big no-no when it comes to racing. Never touch the grass. And if you're going to touch it, whatever you do, don't do it on corner entry. When you're transferring all that weight to the outside of the car. So, this P2 battle continues to rate. Now, O'Leary's made a mistake. O'Leary wasn't this close to the front of Stadler just a lap ago, so he's had an issue somewhere. Oh, that's awkward. That's really awkward for Connor Brown. Trying to bring it to pit lane. He had to stay on the inside and just sort of awkwardly had the leaders coming around the outside of him at the chicane there. A 17.8 for O'Leary there.
O'Leary had to deal with 2 lapped cars on that lap, which compromised his lines a little bit and allowed Stadler to get right up on the back of him, but it seems he started to extend that gap once again. So it's ebbing and flowing here in the battle for second. And Thomas Hins has backed off a little bit as well, maybe to try and get a tiny bit more draft benefit from Harold Stadler, take a bit more advantage down the straights, lift off a bit more, save a bit more fuel, make that second stop as short as possible. But this is probably, the closest battle up the top that we're seeing at the moment, because Sean Campbell now 9 seconds into the lead, and what a fantastic performance it's been from the Fitzstye number 26, but he is encountering some lapped traffic here on the run up to Pouon. That is Brad Klink and Gavin Barber, those two battling pretty hard for 33rd and 34th position, with both of them suffering issues, and that is Barber off at Pouon, which allows Klink through. And at this point, Sean Campbell will be hoping, please, go wide so I can go by here and continue extending that gap.
Yeah, all about just exerting patience when you're the race leader, trying to get by lapped cars. Generally, it's harder for the first car through to get by the lapped cars because they're a bit reluctant to let you go. They want to stay on the lead lap. as we see Peter Vostrel coming into the pits now, following another car through. As Brad Plank just apologises over the radio for the that hesitation and letting Campbell go. See the sun really starting to beat down now over the back of this circuit, casting an orange glow over the racetrack. It'll start to heat it up pretty quickly, although the track is just fluctuating between 18 and 19 degrees at the moment, and it's staying pretty stagnant for now.
Yeah, still a very cool racetrack out there, which means there's going to be the feeling of a lot of grip available to the drivers as the battle for third between Hinz and Stadler. It's a bit of a stalemate between these two at the moment. Hinz, you can tell, has an incredible amount of pace here, but Stadler's just been able to eke out a little more pace where it matters and keep that Porsche behind. Meanwhile, O'Leary has taken advantage by scampering away once again, but a little bit of lap traffic will certainly bring this battle right back together. Depends on where on track it happens. I mean, we saw for Sean Campbell just before, coming up to lap cars in the middle sector is not optimal.
Yeah, Campbell lost about 3/4 of a second on that lap. So his lead's down to 7.8 now. But you'd expect him to pull it back out the other way. Just noting as well, remember we saw that big train of, well, not the big train, but we saw that battle of Newton, Mizomo and Styles earlier on. Newton obviously spun and fell away from it. Well, now it's Styles ahead of Mizomo. So Mizomo still has himself a friend to draft off in this race, as there's been another incident on the racetrack between Stockton and Bain.
Oh,
These two cannot stay away from each other, and this one's even more innocuous than the first one.
Oh dear, well, we might have to check that one out on the Virtual Racing School replay. Let's see what happened between these two who seem to be keeping each other very close company out there on track, and oh dear, yeah, that's pretty slam dunk there. Probably a move that shouldn't have been attempted with so little space there on the inside, and Stockton now missing his rear end as a result. Let's see what happened in the corner before. Well, it looked like a pretty good exit there from Jonathan Bain, flashing the lights, and a bit of a defensive line there from Stockton, but Bain decided to stick it in there anyway, and that's what happens.
Yeah, it's a tough one, that. Bain's upset about it and is blaming Stockton. Stockton obviously is displeased with Bain from previous incidents and has decided to defend it, which is his right to do, despite it being 47 minutes into this race. And they're on the same lap as each other, fighting for position. So the battle was certainly on, and Bain did do enough to get his car up the inside, and once he did, you could actually see Stockton just move out and give him the room. Unfortunately for Bain, he lost it by himself on the brakes and caused the contact. So yeah, if he had to attribute fault, you would probably say Bain. Bain, unfortunately, bringing his race from bad to worse in that one.
Yeah, well, hopefully he'll be able to recover. We've still got an hour and 38 to go here, so there's still plenty of time to make up positions and take advantage of others' mistakes. Meanwhile, battle here for 22nd, we got Dean Alessi here behind Adrian Steffen, and J.M. Thomas just up ahead there in 21st. All of these guys making up positions, but J.M. Thomas making up a pretty good amount there, up 9. But it seems the biggest mover in the field so far has been Mark Newton, just up ahead of this battle. He's up 21 positions in 20th place, and it looks like Cameron Dance has gone back by Blake Neck. Let's see how that went down here at the end of the Kemmel Straight. Was there a mistake for Neck? Yes, there was. Just a little bit of a wiggle there on the entry into Lacombe. Had to do a bit of lawn mowing.
And that relieves the pressure from Dance immensely, and Neck will be really filthy about that because it costs him an opportunity to do some field saving behind Dance as well, because Dance is now a long way in front of him and too far ahead for Neck to utilise his slipstream down the straight. So disappointing mistake for Neck, as there is Mark Newton up 21 spots. He started second last in this race. The man that started last is currently 25th, so that's Philip Morn. He's had a pretty good race as well. We'll see how much further they can charge before the end is out. Thomas Hinz continuing his charge, or so he tries. Borber Stadler. We've used this shot a lot because this back end has seen a lot of action from O'Leary first and now Hinds. Still, he's a hard man to pass. Do you think the nature of that Ford in a straight line, is it set up or is it just the track?
I think it's a combination of all three. You've also got to consider that Harold Stadler is in Austria and he's racing on an Australian server, I believe. So there is going to be a bit more ping, a bit more latency to deal with, which might be discouraging Hinds from racing him too closely. At the same time, you know, the Ford was a popular choice for a lot of people at the iRacing Spa 24 last weekend. It's an old car, yes, but it manages to maintain the pace, and the drivers out there who try to rep it, they will continue for as long as they can until that car is eventually retired, which we hope isn't too soon from now.
What Hinds will be hoping for is to jump him in the pit stops as J.M. Thomas and Adrian Stefan do battle at the chicane. That's pretty tight. Stefan has to use the inside sausage curb to help get his car rotated. And Dean Alessi in behind them as well, is hoping to pick away by both of them potentially, as Adam the Source, who gets the better exit. Adrian Stefan will be eyeing up a move. He won't want to do it before Eau Rouge. Well, maybe he will. That's probably not wise.
Alonso and Webber in 2010, anyone? They go side by side over the top of the hill, and both of them are compromised. That's going to allow Dean Alessi there to try and get a move done, but they're blocking him as there's a bit of side-by-side contact between the Ferrari and the Mercedes. Don't go three wide, boys. It's a bit too dangerous for this early in the race. What can J.M. Thomas do to try and maintain the position here? Keeps up the inside of Adrian Stefan, but the Ferrari manages to get the move done. Oh my goodness.
Stefan was sliding his way through that corner, and a great driving from Thomas to miss him, as Alessi's bombing it into all of these corners. He's missed the rear bumper of the car in front by a millimetre every single apex. Again there, just missing Thomas. He's got a run on him. He'll try to dive it up the inside at Pouon. This will be pretty brave, but so was Eau Rouge. That's wide from Thomas. He's going to have to back it up mid-corner to get it turned. And they survive. And Stefan is escaping out into the distance. That was brazen. I don't know how they got away with that. They went side by side through Eau Rouge and Radillon. Alessi ran into the back of Thomas coming out of Radillon. And then they made side by side contact on the Kemmel Straight. They tried going three wide. They made contact in the chicane. Somehow they're all still alive.
Yeah, it was good driving from all of them to avoid a big incident as we check out the battles in the midfield. Burns chasing down Will Leslie here, who fought hard with Cameron Dance for the championship title last year in the international division. We were mentioning just before Philip Morton, who started last and made up some big net positions. Unfortunately, he's had a technical issue and disconnected from the server, so hopefully he'll be able to get back in at some point. But looking at this battle here down in the field, we've got Peter Vostrel and Shane Bowen just up ahead of these guys, and Vostrel, a lapped car, having to let those guys go. He lets Leslie go into Bruxelles, but Dwayne Burns will be compromised through that corner as we check out the Virtual Racing School replay once more. They're getting a really good workout here on the VRS replay. Damon Stockton, who we've seen involved in a couple of incidents so far. He's got a fresh car. Came in to take his one fast repair that he's entitled to in the Majors Series. What happened to him here? Oh, just getting on the brakes out of La Source and pulling straight off the circuit for some reason.
I wonder if there's a way you can blame Jonathan Bain for that one.
Not too sure. Oh man, it's a shame to see races end like that. You know, Stockton, he could certainly have continued on and gained net positions, but obviously there's a couple of things affecting his race that he's decided is a bit too much, and he might have decided to call it a day there. I think he is indeed out in the next 5 minutes or so, we might start seeing the leaders make their way into the pits. There is Sean Campbell out in the lead, and it's now increased to about 10.5 seconds, that lead, as Campbell has set the fastest lap again, 2:16.5. That's fantastic pace from our leader, but very shortly we'll be seeing the leaders make a visit to the pits as the first hour of the race ends.
Well, won't be taking tyres, that's for sure.
Oh yeah. Doesn't need them at this stage.
Yeah, as the fuel comes out, the car gets lighter, they're still finding plenty of grip available to them that they can utilise that light car to blaze around this racetrack and set the fastest lap. So they'll chuck a full tank in. Maybe some of them will gamble and do their short stop now to gain some track position. But I don't expect anyone's going to take tyres in this race, judging by how this is playing out and how cool the track is staying. It's not heating up at all. And it looks like we're going to play this one out with a nice, cool track temp, which is what you want to see when you're trying to go the distance on tyres. Is O'Leary, Stadler, Hins. I'm interested to see the order in which those three come out of pit lane.
Yeah, and you know, a few more litres of fuel taken at the pit stop, or even slightly missing the pit box, can change the outlook of this battle entirely. So all three of these guys, they're going to have to nail their stop. They'll be thinking about it now for sure, with only 5 minutes to go until we are an hour in to this race officially. O'Leary has done a good job to keep Stadler behind all this time since making that move on him earlier. A little bit squirrely through Blanchimont for all three of these drivers. With that lighter fuel load, you know, these cars with the engines in the middle or the rear of the car, the fuel tank is in about the same place, and as the fuel comes off, it gets a bit leery in the Lamborghini and the Ford at least. I believe the fuel tank for the Porsche is in the front of the car, so Hins has got an entirely different set of circumstances to worry about there.
Really interested in this one, but until they come into pit lane, it's all guesswork, isn't it? It's what they're going to do. Bowen, meanwhile, is still having it out with Dwayne Burns on the racetrack. Last time by, Burns was 7/10 the quicker driver, so he's looking to close in and make an overtake, it would seem. These two are teammates, of course.
They are indeed, and it looks like Daniel Stevens has brought his McLaren in, the sole McLaren in the field, I believe. And the McLaren, the oldest of the GT3 cars on the iRacing service. It was the first to be added way back in the day in 2013. And on Zoom, we have Daniel Stevens with his triple screen setup. And always nice to see how Stevens operates here. Just touring through pit lane at 60 kilometers per hour, but that hairpin on the inside of La Source is very difficult for the drivers to navigate. You can hold a bit of throttle through there, but you've got to keep it tight, because otherwise you'll get into those concrete barriers and your race is pretty much over. Looks like Stevens, with the good pre-qualifying position he had, is going to be pitting here with a little bit more to go until pit exit. So he's not going to lose too much time in that phase of the lane, but let's see where he gets put out.
Bit of iRacing trivia, race for her. What's been around longer, the McLaren on iRacing or Jay on iRacing?
I would say Jay. It's Jay, 100%. He is our director, has been around the scene for, oh God, long as I can remember at least. You know, I joined iRacing in 2010 and Jay was around then as well. That was about the time when SimSpeed first started in the form of V8s online. So Jay, certainly a veteran, more so than the good old McLaren GT3, as it looks like there's a bit of lap traffic here for our second place battle. We got Brad Klenk and Connor Brown up there ahead of these guys. Brad Klenk and in 28th position, Connor Brown in 35th, having recently taken a stop, as it looks like Mark Newton, our biggest mover, is down on the lane there. These guys have just made their way past him.
seems as if Hinsey's fallen away right at the end of the stint, hasn't he, from Harold Stadler? Just wonder if that's got anything to do with... Oh my word, look at this group of laps cars just in front of them.
Goodness. Oh, this is going to be awkward here. My goodness, we've got Brad Klenk side by side with Daniel Stevens. Philip Morton back out on track after his disconnection. He has to give space there to Harold Stadler, but that's compromised Stadler on the exit. Hinsey almost sees a move there. Morton's going to go wide here and let the third place battle by, but O'Leary's having his own issues here with Brad Klenk up ahead. And this is a very difficult section of the circuit to come across lap traffic. What does Brad Klenk do? Does he pull over and let these guys by? No, he does not.
Suddenly, the battle for P2 is under a blanket. I said Hins had fallen away. Laps traffic is just giving all of them a free kick, and it's given O'Leary a 50-metre penalty.
Yeah, it has indeed, as Klenk lifting off there into Fagnier. Hinsey has to go wide in the first part of that sequence of turns, and they are all together here, coming up to Stevens and Brown just up ahead. This is going to be very awkward, and I wonder if any of these guys will decide to make their way into the pits at the end of this lap with all of this traffic up ahead of them. Brown, a little compromise there out of Stavelot corner. He's going to let Stevens by. He's going to have to let O'Leary by too, surely, coming into Blanchimont, just getting on the brakes. This could get awkward. Hinsey has to go wide and almost touched. They did touch, but
sure.
Hold on. Woohoo!
How on earth has Hinsey not been sent spearing into the tyre barriers there? As into the pits they all come. What an in-lap that was for our leaders. Thomas Hinds copped a whack to the left rear, and I may never know how that car did not spiral into the tyre bundles.
Incredible stuff here at the fastest section of the circuit. So Connor Brown there on the inside of Blanchimont. Let's see just how close this was between the two Porsches. Oh my goodness, you could barely put a piece of paper between those two. Fantastic stuff. And you know what? You know who this has also given a massive advantage to? Ethan Bass. He's made up quite a bit of time thanks to that three-car battle for second, getting caught up in that traffic. He's within touching distance of them again, and the pit stop could make all the difference.
Well, let's see what order they rejoin. So, O'Leary, Stadler, Hinds, that was the order coming in. Have any of them saved enough fuel to maybe jump the other in pit lane? Sean Campbell, expect him to be well clear of all of them. This is Cone Cam looking at pit exit.
Indeed, the green cones marking pit exit there.
All of these drivers qualified at the front race. They're all graced with pit boxes very close to the end of pit lane.
So over 30 seconds now for Sean Campbell. This is a long stop for him, so he's going to be going long here in the second stint. And he is away now, ahead of everyone, and back out onto the racetrack, or making his way there anyway, as the second place battle continues to sit there. Harold Stadler ahead of O'Leary. O'Leary, it looks like, has taken tyres, and that has really compromised him. He's lost touch now with this battle, but could he come back later with fresher rubber?
I highly doubt it. I think that's a huge misplay. I mean, you look at the lap times that the leaders were doing, they were still putting in personal bests and fastest laps until the point where they pitted. The track temper's not budged at all since the start of the race. There's no way that he's going to catch them, in my opinion.
Well, now O'Leary down to 10th place, and they're all pitting behind him. There's Antilli, Burns, Bowen, Leslie, Stefan, Alessi, and JM Thomas all in the pits now as Thomas Hinds and Harold Stadler. Here we go.
Bass.
Oh no, yeah, Ethan Bass actually, yeah, he's gotten a good exit there out of pit lane, but side-by-side contact between the two of them, and Bass fighting to stay ahead of Hinds here. Hinsey uses all the curb on the exit of Jackie Ick's corner. Could he go around the outside into Pouon? Bass, a seasoned racer, but he's not going to back out of this. They continue to go side-by-side through the downhill double left, and Hinsey just gets it done around the outside.
That was a good pit stop from Bass. He jumped into pit lane. But not able to hang on the racetrack. Fantastic little duel on tyres that will have cooled down a bit when they were stationary for such a long time. That has allowed Harold Stadler to pull away ever so slightly from Thomas Hinds now. The gap between them, you can see it there. About a second or so now. We'll see what the gap for Sean Campbell is out at the front of the field. Cameron Dance, meanwhile, managed to go a lap further, as did Blake Neck.
Yeah, looks like they did manage to save a bit more fuel there and extend their stint, but Sean Campbell's going to come round La Source now. Looks like about 40 seconds is the average time that we've seen drivers in the pits when they haven't been taking tyres, and Neck has managed to get out here ahead of Dance. It looks like Neck's decided to take his short stint in the middle of the race and grab the race lead potentially. And I think he will have it, because Sean Campbell just making his way out of Eau Rouge now, and Neck out onto the Kemmel Straight. He's going to have, I think, about half a second when the speeds equalise. So let's see how this play works out for Blake Neck.
Meanwhile, Cameron Dance rejoining in front of Thomas Hinds. He might have to get defensive at the end of the Kemmel Straight. Let's see how this plays out. I think Dance just has enough in hand. He does. So Dance back ahead of Thomas Hinds. Really good strategy for Dance. Probably aided by that shocking in-lap for those drivers of Hinds and Bass, who are all held up by lapped cars. So Dance back into a pretty respectable position and back ahead of his championship rival. Stadler, a pretty big winner. Now he's got margin over those he was battling with. But Blake Neck, an intriguing strategy. We'll see how this one plays out. He's gone opposite to everyone else. He'll have a long final stop race, but he's got track position. His goal now will be to utilise it, drive quicker now than he could have if he'd been stuck in traffic, and see where it puts him out at the end of the race.
Yeah, it's going to be an intriguing middle phase now with Campbell still managing to extract great pace out of that Audi. It's all going to be on Neck here with a lighter fuel load to try and either keep that gap even or extend it. Campbell at a slight disadvantage with a lapped car of Sean O'Hara for MFR just up ahead, as here comes Thomas Hinds on Cameron Dance on the run up to Blanchimont. We've got Ethan Bass there just behind. The two Porsches line astern into one of the fastest, most fearsome corners on the racetrack. And Hinsey peeking up the inside here at the chicane. Is he going to get it done? No, Cameron just stays ahead. But all three cars bumper to bumper through the bus stop chicane. And it's a bit of a misnomer, that chicane name now. Its original configuration, it did carry a bit of a bus stop character to it. But with a lot of the rest of the track in this section, it was modified in 2007 to be a little simpler. It does create some great racing here in these GT classes, as here's Will Leslie and Shane Bowen for 18th and 19th. Dwayne Burns up ahead of Bowen now and just making his way past the lapped car there into Clubhouse Corner. Campus, sorry.
Connor Brown should duck out of the way here. Bowen will be hoping he does so. Although Brown will be having flashbacks to last time he ducked out of the way at Blanchimont. There was almost a big wreck. He doesn't.
Oh,
Thomas Hinds. He's gone by Cameron Dance. We're going to have to get a replay of this thanks to Virtual Racing School.
And that was at the end of the Kemmel Straight. And straight up draft, pull out alongside, a little bit braver on the brakes, side by side at the turning point, and Cameron Dance says, you know what, you can have it, mate. I'm not going to force the issue here with still over an hour and a quarter to go in this race. So now I think this will benefit Dance a little more, because he can afford to save a bit of fuel, and Ethan Bass, being his teammate, I would imagine is not going to give him too much trouble, as here is Sorensen and Klenk, as Brad Klenk continues to try and make his way back up the field here after that incident earlier on, one of the MFR BMWs. And tell you what, Klenk has been, I think, one of the star drivers outside of the very top competitors this year. He is leading the sportsman standings, and he has been able to extract some great results out of any car that he's been racing.
Certainly has. What did Cameron say? I thought you had a bit of a Kiwi accent in that race.
I don't have voice chat on, so I wasn't able to hear what you must have heard just then.
Oh, no, I was referring to what you said.
All right, okay. I'm a little bit slow on that aspect of my my mentality today, so I think we might just let that slide. I do have a bit of New Zealand heritage, though. My mum's side of the family is from Kiwilanders. Have a look at this. The 9th place. The Fitzstein Porsche of Simon Mazzomo up on Jack Stiles, and these two have been running line astern for quite some time here. They've advanced a bit further now into 8th and 9th, where previously they were in the top 10, thanks to this guy, Thomas O'Leary, pitting for tyres at the last stop. But on that slightly fresher rubber, maybe O'Leary can extract a bit more pace. Not looking like it, though, with how long these guys have been able to make the tyres last as Hins and Dance continue to battle away here with Ethan Bass looking on.
Tough stage of the race, this. You've made your first pit stop, and now you've got to settle in, with the exception of Blake Neck, for the long haul. You've got a full tank of fuel again. You've got to go another hour until your next pit stop. And then, at the end of that, you've still got another stint to go until the end. So it's a really tough proposition for all of these drivers. And it's where the fatigue can set in. And at a place like Spa, where off-tracks are traditionally very easy to get, you've got to make sure you're not just falling into a trap of running wide lazily on all of these corners, picking up an off-track here and an off-track there, because you can rack up those incident points pretty easily. Now, let's just get a shot of Sean Campbell here through the windscreen, because I've seen something quite disturbing in relation to the helmet.
In relation to the helmet, okay. We shall get there in just a second, as let's have a look then. Jay asks, are you ready?
Jay's just got to find his joystick. There it is. Good shot, Jay. Really good shot.
Excellent. Oh dear. Oh God. Is that Nicolas Cage? It's Nicolas Cage. Wonderful. That is art right there. Oh, thank goodness for sim racing and the fact that we can move the camera around anywhere we like. That's fantastic stuff. Oh, my Lord. The man, the myth, the legend, out there battling for the lead here in the 2.4 hours of Spa, round 9 of the International Division of the Majors Series. Once again, supporting the Hunger Project, charity we're supporting this round, and looks like Sean Campbell has been managing to just chip away at Blake Neck's lead there. Took 2/10 out of him on the last lap as the battle for 4th continues. Harold Stadler is a good way ahead of this battle now, 3 and a bit seconds. And Hinsey has got his hands full with the 2 Fitzsteins of Dance and Bass.
O'Leary, after that really slow stop as a result of tyres, is on the charge. That's a bold move on the inside of Mazzomo. That'll upset Mazzomo. They made a little bit of contact there. The gap wasn't really there, but he's forced his way up the inside. The tyres evidently making a little bit of a difference, giving him the confidence at least to make bold manoeuvres. And he's up into P9 now as O'Leary, but he's 38 seconds off the race lead, and the drivers he was battling, he's 24 seconds behind them. So still a long way for him to go to make up for ground lost.
Indeed, the ground continuing to be made up by Sean Campbell here, now bringing it down to 9/10 of a second versus Blake Neck through the bus stop chicane. They come around to start the 32nd lap here, and Neck's done a good job here to keep the pace up, but 2 minutes 17.7 for Neck versus 2:17.2 for Sean Campbell. It's pretty clear who's the faster driver here, even with Campbell on the heavier fuel load.
The good news for Neck is he's still lapping quicker than those from pit 3 on back. And so he's doing what he needs to do at the moment. And that clear air is giving him the advantage he was hoping it would do. What I would do if I was Blake is once Campbell gets to him is just let him go and use his draft, because Campbell's evidently quicker. Use his draft, stay in his slipstream down the straights, follow him through the corners as closely as you can, and he should be able to stay with him pretty closely.
Yeah, that could turn out to be a great strategy play for Blake Neck, as O'Leary now searching for a way through on Jack Styles for position 8, and the gyro cam up through the rise of Radion is fantastic to behold. There's so much compression that goes through the suspension at that point of the racetrack. And Styles a bit defensive here down the Kemmel Straight, but I don't think O'Leary's going to attack too hard here into the braking zone. He does make up quite a bit of time under brakes, but not going to get it done, at least if he can hook up the throttle. He thought about doing the same thing that he did to Mazzomo, but not far up enough that time at least. Oh dear, here he goes, up the inside of Brusel, and wide goes Styles to let him go. They'll obviously be aware that O'Leary is on fresher tyres and is a bit more aggressive, so that's all she wrote for that position. Now, O'Leary has got a lot of time to make up there to Matt Andrews. It's about 16 seconds or so that he'll have to find there versus Matt Andrews. But he's got some clear air now, he can certainly do it.
Yeah, Styles saw him coming, which was fortunate, otherwise they could have easily made contact there. Half a second now, the gap between Neck and Campbell. And we'll see whether Neck does indeed let Campbell go and then try to get sort of towed around this racetrack by the fastest car out there at the moment. 17.1 for Campbell that time, 17.6 for Blake Neck. As we said, it's good for Neck. It's quicker than everyone else that he's racing. But it's no match for Campbell. Campbell's just on another level at the moment. That Audi.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic drive from Campbell so far. And down the Kemmel Straight, it looks like a bit of a draft here getting picked up for the Audi. Sean Campbell, of course, an American. We don't usually see him here in the international split, but he's obviously decided to take the international split for this particular round and putting on a fantastic performance, and obviously helping Fitstein Motorsport as well with their assault here on the team's championship in many divisions. So let's see if Blake Neck can hold off the advances of Campbell through the middle sector. The Porsche, a little bit of understeer on the exit of Jackie X corner, but that's a given, of course, as I mentioned before, the fuel tank in the front of the Porsche. So if you don't get enough weight onto the fronts, then that front end is certainly going to come away from you a little bit. Kins, Dance and Bass, meanwhile, for 4th place on track right now. There's a long way ahead to Harold Stadler. He's actually extended the gap there over Thomas Hinz, so the Austrian seems very comfortable there in that gap.
Yeah, Stadler's doing a better job the longer this race goes on. Remember at the end of that first stint, he started to pull away from Hinz before they caught that clump of lapped cars, and the trend has continued into the second stint. So I wonder if Hinz is just struggling for focus, or maybe, obviously the tyres do change regardless of whether they lose actual lap time. They do change in their behaviour a little bit. Whether Hinz is just struggling with that and Stadler's doing a better job. He's certainly pulling away and looking like he's solidifying himself into a podium spot for the end of this race. Just over an hour to run now. In fact, probably not far away from seeing Blake Neck into the pits, are we?
Nah, I would expect him to be pitting on the hour mark or thereabouts to take himself to the end. So that's going to equalise the fight between he and Campbell for the lead, which is down to 2 or 3 tenths of a second now, coming onto the Kemmel Straight. Another big draft for our former leader and effective leader on strategy, Sean Campbell. They're coming up to a lapped car as well. That's Sean Rees in the Gentlemen's Sim Racing Club Mercedes, and This is going to be in the middle sector once again, which could certainly play havoc for our top two.
Lap times have just equalised at the top. Necks have come down a couple tenths, and Campbell's have gone up a couple tenths. Now they're lapping the same. Just a factor of the dirty air a little bit, and Campbell maybe electing to just save a little bit of fuel here as we dive on board with Daniel Stevens. Been a troublesome race for him so far. He's had a couple of slowdowns. Scott Newton's had a troublesome race as well. He's had a couple of spins, yet both of them are still in with a chance of the top 10. Running 12th and 13th at the moment.
Yeah, they've done a good job of recovering and keeping their cars there solidly just outside the top 10. Daniel Stevens in the McLaren getting a bit of draft and pulls out. Has a little bit of a wiggle there in Newton's mirrors trying to psych him out, but Newton, for Apex Racing Team, a very experienced sim racer and certainly knows how to win in open wheelers, so he's very wise to those kinds of moves, and it seems he's unaffected by it so far. The faster of the two of them on the last lap was Stevens, 2:17.7 versus a 2:18.8 for Scott Newton. So Stevens with the advantage right now, but can he hold on to it once he gets past Newton? If he can get past him. That's an odd place to try a move there at Pouon. Newton carrying a little more speed into the corner. Stevens has to yield. I don't know how this is going to turn out.
It will either end with Stevens in front or both of them in the wall, I suspect.
I would agree with that assessment as Newton a little bit understeery there on the exit of Fagnes. Stevens almost sees an opportunity to get by into campus.
Ooh. Brent Blank has had a spin out on the racetrack. He was running 15th as well, but luckily he's got away with it. When he came to a rest on the racing line, he'd be very thankful that no one was immediately behind him at the time. Oh, this is bold, side by side into Blanchimont. Stevens on the inside, Newton lifts off. But that's wide from Stevens. It may allow Newton to come back at him into the chicane at the final couple of corners. And not quite. Stevens able to cover him off. So that was a good move from Daniel Stevens. And it ends with him in front.
It looks like Cameron Dance has suffered a slowdown. Ethan Bass has gotten past him on the Kemmel Straight. So, yeah, just looking at Cameron Dance, he went way beyond the curbs at the top of Radion. So here's the onboard here from Dance, chasing down Thomas Hins. And you'll see he makes his way through reasonably through Radion, but a bit too much curb there and way over there. That is a slam dunk slowdown penalty. He's going to lift off here to let Ethan Bass go. So Dance's race here in the second half, not getting off to the best start.
You want to see someone who got it even more wrong at Radion? Let's have a look at Sean O'Hara just a minute ago. His Summer Mizono was also slow as a result of a slowdown. Well, in fact, Mizomo spun. So let's get a replay of him first.
Whoa.
Looks like the weight transfer, it flicked him in a bit of a pendulum, didn't it?
Very easy to get a pendulum on in the Porsche with that rear engine layout. Got to be careful with how you turn in, and we'll have a look at Sean O'Hara here, who we did... Sean Reese, I think, actually, there in the number 23. Here's O'Hara. Just coming out of, there's the spin there at the top of Radion. Let's see what happened to him. Obviously carrying heavy damage. So let's see just how wrong he got it here, Ryan. Across the curb, bit too much grass on the inside, and the car was unstable there. Huge hit there, and back onto the racetrack. They got to be careful going through there, but they've all managed to avoid him.
The scary moment. Got to be careful that rejoin as well. You can see he considered going back. He just got the inside grass and it unsettled him. And it meant as he came across the top of Radion, the rear end was not complicit. And around she goes. Was very fortunate in the end that everyone else was able to avoid him.
Absolutely. Well, Cameron Dance now, having fallen back thanks to that slowdown, has got his teammate Matt Andrews for company. Andrews taking his first international majors win at the Muscat 250 in the modifieds at New Hampshire Motor Speedway a few rounds back, and running pretty well so far in the top 10. He's kept himself there all race, and one of the few drivers in this field to be maintaining the same position in which he started. So he has managed to avoid a lot of the dramas, has Matt Andrews.
Doing a good job. On track for a nice solid top 10 result in this one. And with the mistakes that Cameron Dance is consistently making throughout this one, we've seen him drop down the order a number of times. He may yet finish a spot or two higher than where he started. Battle for 16th on the racetrack is starting to liven up a bit. Blaine Burns, Shane Bowen, Will Leslie. Feels like these three have been together all race long as well.
Yeah, for sure. Those two Avatar cars and that one Kinetic Porsche, they've been locked together for the majority of this race, but it is still Dwayne Burns at the front of this pack. Bowen, having started behind Burns, I believe, and Burns losing 2 positions through the pit stop cycles, but maintaining some good pace there in the midfield. And it seems to me that Will Leslie starting to draw up to the back here of the two Avatar cars, who are pretty much equal on pace, but just a tenth faster or so on the previous lap here for Will Leslie. I love this corner here through Farnier. It is flat, of course, not much elevation change, but it's got a very nice flow to it, and the way the second corner tightens up just a little really forces you to think about your exit. And this run onto the back stretch coming up to Blanchimont, one of my favourite pieces of racetrack in sim racing. When you get it right, it is such a good feeling. And here, from Shane Bowen, Will Leslie going to get the draft coming up to the Blanchimont corner. Now, how much are these guys going to push the issue through this corner? Bowen taking a little bit more of the exit, which puts him on a good run towards the chicane, and Leslie just keeping it nice and consistent in the braking zone to try and stay behind. Meanwhile, Ethan Bass, there's been a problem for him. He was ahead of Cameron Dance and Matt Andrews here, and thinking this might be a slowdown here for Ethan. What happens at the top of the hill? Yep, there we go. Over the tarmac on the inside of the curb, that is a slowdown. So all this is doing is giving a great advantage to Thomas Hinds, who now holds on by about 4.5 seconds over Cameron Dance.
You can put, as long as you've got some form of your tyres on the curb on the inside, you should be fine. But as soon as you have all 4 tyres on the tarmac, you are in for a hefty slowdown. And Andrews hasn't made that mistake yet in this race, touchwood, and he's up into 6th place now as a result of that error from Ethan Bass. Under 1 hour to go, so Blake Neck shouldn't be too far away from pitting. Jake Fox comes into pit lane. Now the thing for Neck here, the further he goes, the less fuel he has to put in. So he didn't do a full stop the first time round, and the further he has to go, the further he goes here before he pits, well, he's not going to do a full stop here either.
Yeah, so
it's worked out really well for him.
Yeah, indeed. It remains to be seen, especially with these slowdowns for Dance and Bass, how he's going to factor into that battle. He might be able to pit both of them in this last pit stop, put himself on a good course for at least 4th place, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. And while we look at the 3 Fitsty cars in a line with Matt Andrews of a different sub-team there to Dance and Bass, down the Kimmel Straight once again, 3 car brands represented here by Fitsty Motorsport. It's good to see the wide variety of machinery out there. And, you know, I think the balance of performance between the GT3 cars and iRacing, as we see coming in, I think that's Scott Newton there, who he's not had the best opening half to this race, and just electing to take that final pit stop now. But I was going to say, Ryan, the balance of performance is in a really good spot right now, I think, especially at this track, because it seems like any car is able to be competitive here. Yes, Campbell and the sole Audi has been the leader for the majority of this time, but we've got Porsches, Fords and Mercedes all up there in the top positions.
We do, don't we? Wasn't it BMW that was the car of choice in the Spa 24-hour?
Yes, I think so. A lot of people running the BMW there with its propensity to oversteer on throttle, which is certainly handy in this middle sector of the circuit where you're on throttle for long periods of time on the exit of corners.
It shows you the diversity of cars you can run on iRacing.
In comes Nick.
So he's going to need to fill the car up for a 56-minute stint. Slightly compromised on his pit entrance by Jake Manhire. Won't have been able to commit as deeply into the pit entrance as he would have wanted. It looks like Manhire's not actually doing the speed limit either. His neck's giving him a bit of a bump.
You know what I think's going on here? Manhire has the pit speed limiter on and Neck does not. You can run a couple of kilometers an hour over the pit limit and escape any form of penalty. So Neck obviously using that strategy, but Manhire, with the pit limiter activated, loses out on that extra couple of kilometers an hour. So Neck probably ruining the fact that he's got this BMW in front of him.
Neck won't get a huge gain. It'll be probably about a second short of a full stop, if anything, but that second could come in handy. Now,
So, I just said certainly. I'm agreeing with you, and I would also agree with you that this battle is starting to go off, if that's what you were going to say.
something along those lines.
Let's see then what happens here for Blake Neck. We're expecting this will be about a 39 to 40 second pit stop, and of course not taking tyres, which seems to be the way of the day. The track is staying at 18 degrees, so it hasn't heated up at all as the sun started to come up. So it seems that everyone here electing to not take tyres except for Thomas O'Leary, who's lost out massively. Oh, there we go. Blake Neck deciding to take tyres here on this stop.
Why?
Is this going to compromise him?
Come on, Blake. He was on for such a good strategy.
Well, I think we'll have to wait and see when everyone else comes in whether or not they decide to take tyres, but I would suspect not, because all the drivers that Neck's battling with are going to be taking their short stop for their final stop. So if they take tyres, that's effectively doubling the amount of time they're spent at a standstill. So yeah, why would you take tyres?
Jake Manhire rejoined in front of John Sorensen, so that's where Neck would have rejoined in P18, which is 48 seconds behind Thomas O'Leary. But that's less than pit transit time.
It is. So when O'Leary decides to come in for his second stop, Neck should be able to at least pass him, but how is it going to affect Neck's standing in the P2, 3, 4, 5 battle is the question on everyone's minds at the moment, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm saying that's where Neck should have come out if he hadn't have taken tyres. So I don't know if he will pass O'Leary anymore.
Yeah. Well,
remember, O'Leary's on fresh tyres as well, so he won't, or fresher tyres, so he won't gain much of an advantage over him in terms of lap time. The fact that O'Leary took tyres on the previous stop. So, going to be an interesting conclusion to this one. Campbell's got a 15-second advantage out of the front race over Harold Stadler, who's got 6 seconds over Hinz. And then Cameron Dance in 4th, Matt Andrews in 5th.
Ethan Bass still holding on to that 6th place as we check back in here with Will Leslie on the back of Shane Bowen. These two have been glued together over the last couple of laps. The battle for 14th position is just up ahead of them. Daniel Stevens is in the lane and they've made their way past him now. So Stevens in the McLaren coming in for his second stop, and looks to me like this is going to be a straight up long stint to the end. See how that works out there. for Daniel Stevens as the 3 Fitstire cars from 4th to 6th. Matt Andrews starting to gain a little on Dance as between Brad Klenk and Scott Newton, it is an on-track battle for position. Newton, of course, having just come through the pits.
Both these drivers have had their fair share of issues in this race. Certainly personifying the endurance nature of this one. As out towards Bonchimon, I saw on the previous lap Philip Morton have a dive at Julian Nuki into this corner, up the inside. They banged doors, they got away with it. Nuki wasn't very happy with it over the radio. Scott Newton's a bit more restrained than that. Actually looks like Brad Klenk here has got a bit more straight line speed than Newton, unless Newton was lifting off the throttle there.
Now, Newton also missed the second apex of the bus stop chicane there, which is giving even more of an advantage to Klenk down the start-finish straight. And again, it seems that Klenk has that Ferrari sorted in the middle stages as Stevens out of the pits, 40.6 seconds, which is what we'd expect for enough fuel to get to the end from here. He comes out ahead of one of the Fitstire Fords there, and that's going to be yielding there. That is Harold Stadler that Stevens is having to yield to there. Stadler holding on magnificently to second place on track, thanks to gaining a good amount of advantage in the kerfuffles that we saw earlier in the top 5, navigating those lapped cars. Checking back in here with Thomas O'Leary, 10 seconds behind Ethan Bass, and with a few more lapped cars to make his way through. Seeing Alexander Sheridan also in the pits, as well as Jonathan Bean and Sean Rees.
I can report Daniel Stevens took a tank of fuel and a bottle of beer, can of beer, one of the two, in his pit stop, according to Jay, who was keeping his eye on the Zoom feed. Apparently Stevens chugged a beer during his pit stop. So a can of fuel for himself as well, I suppose.
Yes, indeed. Make his way to the end with some extra hydration. Bit of a comparison here between Thomas O'Leary and Ethan Bass, and you see how much time O'Leary is gaining on Ethan Bass lap on lap with those fresher tyres. But yeah, again, O'Leary down 4 positions. He would have been holding on to second place were it not for that stop and taking tyres. Sheridan at a standstill in the box, taking fuel. Let's see if he decides to take tyres in the final stint.
I wouldn't afford to be a popular option. And if you're going to take tyres, I wouldn't do it for the final short stint either. You want to give yourself as much time as possible to utilise it.
Yeah, what's going to happen for a lot of these drivers as the battle continues on here between Dance, Andrews and Bass, and Andrews really coming on strong here in the second half. You know, I think it's all about, in these endurance races, we talk about buying a ticket to the end a lot, as gentlemen SimRacing Club car of J.M. Thomas in the box, keeping the car clean over this first half of the race, putting yourself in a good position towards the end. That's what Matt Andrews has done, and I have to say, big props to him for that, for staying out of the drama that a lot of drivers have seen.
Definitely doing a good job of it. He's just got to continue that job for another 48 minutes plus a lap or so. Something along those lines. Just coming under some pressure now though from Ethan Bass. Cameron Dance just ahead, maybe holding him up slightly through some of the corners, compromising him ever so slightly as into the pit lane comes Mitchell Bales. He was running in 10th, so it's from the back of the top 10. 14 spots from where he started. He's had a pretty good race, especially after that early incident with Brad Klenk that he was lucky to escape from. Shane Bowen, Will Leslie, P11 and P12, continuing on as Dwayne Burns has a slowdown that is going to allow both of them to blaze on by him in a straight line. And that's disappointing for Burns because he'd done a good job to keep them behind him for much of this race, and he'd actually pulled away from both of them now he is going to have to work on getting by them again. It does put Leslie, though, in a bit of a team sandwich between the two teammates either side of him now. 47 minutes remaining. How close are we to seeing the leaders diving into the pits? As Harold Stadler's actually closed the gap to the race leader by about a second or two. It's down to 13.8 seconds now. So some good lap times coming in. Stadler. Let's take a look at the recent laps and see where that time has been gained. Is it consistent, or is it a case of just a slow lap or two from Campbell? Inns is certainly not going with him. He's falling away. He's about 20 seconds back now. So, if anything, the only threat to Campbell is Harold Stadler in this race. There we go. He's catching him.
Oh, yeah.
Bit by bit. There you go, Reese. 6 tenths, 7 tenths, 3 tenths the previous lap. So, we might yet have a fight on our hands for the lead of the race if Stadler can keep this up, and if he's got a bit more up his sleeve for the pit stop, he can put less fuel in the tank. Maybe, Reese. Maybe there's something there for him.
Maybe there's something here for Will Leslie too, because he's made his way past... actually, it looks like Burns has lost time to both of these guys. Remember, Burns was ahead of Bowen when we last looked at him. And seems to me that the reason being he is in the pit lane. As I've just taken a look at my timing screen there, Dwayne Burns, the first of that battle there to make his way into the lane for his final pit stop. So Bowen now starting to come up to a bit of traffic here, and coming up down the Kemmel Straight. This is going to be interesting. They've got J.M. Thomas and Philip Morton, who are not battling for position right now. They're both many laps down and many positions apart, but it looks like Morton's going to go for the move here on J.M. Thomas, and the Mercedes is going to give the Ferrari room, but Shane Bowen is not going to be liking this, seeing these two running side by side, and Thomas is fighting it. Morton a bit compromised on the exit of Bruxelles. This is bad here for the Avatar Auto Racing driver, but I'll tell you what, it's likely that Will Leslie is licking his lips right now as there's a big crash between Morton and Thomas. They both get sent over. Thomas manages to pull off the track, but Morton is still flipping as he makes his way through Jackie Ick's corner, manages to land it on all four wheels, but that was a completely unnecessary incident between those two.
The radios blow up in Sim. Let's take a look at the replay.
So Thomas was trying to fight Morton there, and Morton, of course, down the order from Thomas right now, but seems to be the faster car, and Thomas still trying to keep his nose in there on the exit as Morton took the racing line out of there, and they both come together. Tumbling over, boing, 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 and down he goes.
Tough one to call that.
Yeah.
Because it's almost as if Morton... Well, J.M. Thomas could have been wider and Morton could have been tighter to the inside. So they probably both played a part in that.
Yeah, I think they would. Yeah, go on.
Morton's 3 laps down.
Yeah.
Thomas is 1 lap down. Bowen's on the lead lap, Leslie's on the lead lap, so at the end of the day, it's cheaper for both.
Yeah, they would have. I think they would have been trying to think about those two behind them battling for position on the lead lap. But you know, when you've got someone that close to you, the red mist can start to come into it. Fortunately, it looks like Bowen and Leslie have escaped that. They've got that's. Just behind them is Connor Brown, and he's not giving them any trouble at the moment. They've been very lucky to get away with that crash happening in front of them, but Leslie's back on the attack. Meanwhile, Brad Clank still involved in a big fight here with Mitchell Bales this time, and well, we saw these two come together a bit earlier. Take two.
Well, battling for position again. Reese, 21st, 22nd. Both a lap down now, but they won't care about that at all. Scott Newton as well in this fight. Just ahead of them. Bales has made his stop. I don't think Clank has. Would I be right in saying that? The final stop of the race? No, they've both done 2 stops, says Jay.
Well, yeah, don't forget Brad Clank would have been in the pits a bit earlier to get some damage repaired. Don't know if that would have counted for his first short stint as well. So let's see now.
His last stop, 42 for Bales. So they're both good to the end, Aries.
Okay. So where they go, they can continue on as normal and see if the move for position can be clean this time. Bales all over the curves here in his pursuit of the GSR Ferrari. Almost getting a run on the run down to Bruxelles, but a downhill braking zone, very difficult to get right as we have seen. And this battle now is allowing the likes of Scott Newton to skip away. He's officially shown us, oh, hang on a minute, here's Ethan Bass on the inside of Matt Andrews for 5th place. Good stuff there. So Cameron, just up ahead of them, has taken a little bit more time ahead and gapped them as Clink and Bales continue to battle here behind, a lap down. But Ethan and Matt sorting themselves out very nicely there coming into Pouon. They both gave each other plenty of room, which you'd expect since they're teammates, but what's Bales going to do here versus Clank? It's MFR versus Gentleman Sim Racing Club here.
Earlier in the race, it was what, 20 or 40 minutes in? It was a case of Clank defending and then squeezing, and Bales tried to pass, and it felt a little unnecessary that early in the race that forced contact. Clank was the one that came off worse for wear. Bales got away with it. And they're in pretty much exactly the same scenario. With 40 minutes to go and both cars feel to the end, you might feel that you are obliged to be able to defend now. Certainly if you feel like you do have a car that's capable of fighting the one you're battling with. As Bales gets out of the way for one of the lead lap cars coming through. That looks like O'Leary, and indeed it is. That's the other factor they've got to deal with now though, being late in the races. Faster cars coming through and interfering.
Well, O'Leary square in between them as O'Leary, we're hearing fastest car on track on the last lap, 217.272 was the time that he set. So with that, with taking those tyres in that first stop, he's in a bit of an optimum phase at the moment with that car, but again, taking tyres early on has cost him quite a bit in terms of track position, so don't know if he'll be able to still be on for a podium or even a top 5 at this stage, and he gets past Clink nice and cleanly, but we're right on board here with Will Leslie looking from the front bumper of the Porsche as he chases the other Porsche of Shane Bowen for the last position here in the top 10. And these guys both have yet to come in for their final stop as well, so certainly the positions we're seeing at the moment don't reflect where they actually are in terms of the race result.
I think we'll see the stops within the next 10 minutes. They said they needed about 40 litres, and that's just under half a tank. So about the next 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I think we'll see everyone into the pits who hasn't yet done so. That's how much that O'Leary is getting on Andrews. That previous lap, Andrews was held up by some lap traffic. As you can see, he was 3 seconds slower than O'Leary. But certainly fresh tyres working. Just quietly, Sadler's still gaining bit by bit on John Campbell.
Yes, indeed. The gap now under 12 seconds here for the lead of the race.
Gained a second on this one.
Great pace from Harold Stadler here in the final half hour. Both of these guys have yet to come in for their final stop. So could this still be on for the race win? Clink and Bales, meanwhile, at the end of the lap, O'Leary's gotten by both of them, and Seems to me that Clank has gotten back into a good rhythm here as Bales continues to try and chase him down here in the BMW M4, one of the newer GT3 cars on the service. The Ferrari added a couple of years back in both GT3 and GTE form, along with the more modern Ford GT, which has since been retired from official competition. It's a very long sixth gear in the BMW M4, so you can certainly get it up to a good run of speed at Le Mans or down the Dottinger Höhe at the Nürburgring Nordschleife, but here at Spa, still a very fast circuit, but the fast straight is not quite as quick, not quite as long, so you can't use the full range in 6, but it's not hurting Bales too much here as less than a car length now between himself and Clank. A move could be on very shortly, and Clank a little bit of oversteer on the exit of Jackie X.
Clank is just strong where it matters, isn't he, Reese? We've seen that from a number of drivers today, like Cameron Dance. Car trimmed out to be fast in a straight line. When we say trimmed out, we mean the rear wing is just as flat as he can risk it being to still make it through the corners confidently. So it's not sort of creating as much resistance in a straight line to that air, is it?
Yeah, a little bit less rear grip through the corners, but you take great benefit down these long, flat-out sections like here. On the run up to Blanchimont, just up ahead, O'Leary making his way past Scott Newton, but these guys won't be worrying too much about Newton up ahead. They're more focused on each other right now, down into the bus stop chicane. And Bale's not quite able to take advantage. They all avoid the pits for the time being, because they've all made their way through on the strategy so far.
Looks like Matt Andrews wants to get a move on. You get by Ethan Bass. He was having a look at the source. He showed the nose. And that Mercedes wants in to the top 5.
Don't forget, between Andrews and Bass, it was a pretty easy move there, and I think maybe Andrews got a bit compromised on the exit of Jackie X when that pass was made. Meanwhile, O'Leary continuing to make up bulk time on Andrews here as he pulls out for another move here on Ethan Bass, but Ethan stays ahead. The Scot maintaining position. And all this is doing here is really helping O'Leary to get back into the top 5 himself as Andrews gets a great exit out of Malmedy. He can't get it done though into Bruxelles. Ethan Bass still holding on in that Ford V8. Oh, here we go. Ethan pulling over to let Andrews go. He's going to try and defend here from O'Leary.
Oh yeah, O'Leary's caught them, hasn't he?
Yeah. Right on the back of him now. Have a look at how much more he can take out of the entry to these fast corners on those fresher tyres. Ethan a little bit more tentative coming into the Fagnes chicane, but O'Leary able to maintain just a bit more mid-corner speed, and this could translate into a great run here down the run up to Blanchimont. Will he be able to get alongside before the turn-in point is the question, though. He does have the run. Bass with a little bit less grip there on the exit, but he goes defensive here versus O'Leary. Stays ahead of him at the turn-in point, but he can't use the full width of the track to turn in. O'Leary was right there. This could be a run here into the chicane. Bass going defensive, stays to the inside. O'Leary a little bit later on the brakes. Can he maintain it through the first part of the bus stop? He can, and has the inside for the second phase of the chicane and gets the move done.
Really good battle there between these two. Nice and clean. And O'Leary executes that move, and those fresh tyres, turns out they're working for him. Really late in this race, they're coming to him. And he should get a top 5 out of this. He was 4th, wasn't he? When he pitted out of the group earlier on in the first pit stop. Cameron Dance is 6 seconds up the road from him right now in P4.
He was second,
wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. So he's. It looks like that's a slowdown for Ethan Bass. He ended up having to let Scott Newton go there. So further troubles there for Ethan after getting passed by O'Leary. And that's just in front of the battle here between Clenk and Bales. Yeah, O'Leary, I think it's a race of what might have been for him. Yes, those fresher tyres are helping him now, but as we said earlier when he took his pit stop, I think he's just lost too much time by taking tyres when maybe he didn't necessarily need to. It's obviously given him some confidence, but it has cost him a lot of time.
Blake Neck, 13th, minute 50 off the race lead. Is minute 15 behind O'Leary. I mean, if he'd taken tyres earlier on, it might have worked for him, but he's taken them too late for it to work out for him. His strategy would have been perfect, I think, if he hadn't have taken tyres. Right now, he's just nowhere, isn't he?
Yeah, other than that call, I think Neck's strategy has been very strong. But don't forget that just about everyone up ahead of him, in fact, yes, everyone up ahead of him has yet to come in for their second stop. So
There'll be short stops. We'll see how it plays out, though.
Yeah, indeed. I think the Neck should still gain quite a few positions out of it, but probably not enough to get back into the top 4.
It'll be a top 10 for sure, as we'll see stops in the next 5 minutes, I suspect. Still Bales hunts for a way by Clenk, just in the rearview mirror, or camera if you want to call it, of O'Leary there.
They've actually caught up Ethan Bass a bit now thanks to the slowdown there for the Fitz-Dive Ford. And less than 3/10 here between Clenk and Bales. It's going to be a massive draft for Mitchell here, with Bass and Clenk up ahead of him. So great overspeed and nails Eau-Rouge and Radillon. Gets a tiny bit of a run here on the Ferrari, but doesn't look like it's going to translate into a move down into Lecombe. Bass trying his best to stay ahead, as it looks like O'Leary is now with Matt Andrews alongside through Malmedy. And there's contact between the two of them, and Andrews has been sent into the tyre barriers. Side-by-side contact.
Having such a clean race.
That's a shame, man.
Now, what he can do is bring it to pit lane this lap, take his spare car because he's had such a clean race, and maybe get away with it a little bit. Here's the replay.
Slow-mo, and it looks like O'Leary, well, probably didn't leave Andrews a huge amount of room there on the outside, but he would have thought he was ahead, and man, that side-by-side contact, both of the wheels coming together, just firing Andrews into the barrier there. He will probably be a bit compromised as Bales and Clenk continue to fight here.
I almost feel like Bales is going to have a big lob at some point.
He'll have to, because he's been running behind Clenk for so long at this point that, if he doesn't make the attempt at some point, then, that would be an opportunity wasted potentially. But he might be looking to get it done in a spot where he has space. It has been a good exit there, and Clenk a bit defensive there into the chicane. Oh no! There we go, and Ethan Bass straight to the lane. He was probably planning to do that, but Clenk making that contact obviously compromised him. Now Ethan's going to have to take his spare car along with Matt Andrews, who's in the lane with him.
Ethan might have got away with it, but in terms of damage, but if I was him, knowing this is my last stop, I'd just take it anyway. Although, if he does get wrecked, you maybe want to keep it in the bank, who knows. Clenk was worrying about Bales. He tried to brake as low as he could, which he did. Unfortunately for him, what happened there? Whoa.
Wow, we went back in time for a second there. Hearing the TARDIS sounds.
Unfortunately for him, because Bass was there, he just ran out of room to brake any later.
Well, we'll check it out here. You see Bass taking his normal line into the corner with Clenk defending, and Clenk just hits Bass and then hits him again coming through the bus stop, and well, Clenk stays out on track. That's Bales through, and that's probably the easiest way that Bales could have conceived of getting through on Clenk there. That's really benefited him. But Ethan Bass now, along with Matt Andrews, in the box.
Watching their pit exit. Andrews goes now. Ethan Bass should be a couple seconds later.
Oh, Ethan is in the lane for a bit longer. I think he might be taking damage repair there.
This is Cast.
Oh no, he's taken tyres. He would have had the damage to repair. So if he doesn't want to use this spare car, then he might as well take tyres. But I think this has massively compromised Bass's race here. Has he taken his spare car?
That's some flawed logic, Reese.
No, yeah, I was, yeah, he did take his spare car.
You were copying what Reese said. You were copying what Jay said. I'll save you that.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I'm a bit like Michael Scott. Sometimes I start a sentence and I just see where it goes.
Harold Sadler comes in now from P2. He'd stopped reining Campbell in. The gap had come down to 12.8, 13 seconds, and then stayed static. So he pits first. Let's see how this stop plays out for Harold Sadler as we go on board with Will Leslie, currently 9th in this one, behind Shane Bowen in 8th. See if these two come in this lap as well. Cameron Dance has gone an extra lap, as is Thomas Hins. In fact, everyone's going an extra lap, so I'd say, if anything, Stadler's come in a lap short.
Yeah. He's going to have to spend a little more time in the lane there, getting those extra few litres in to make that extra lap. He is in the box now, and I would expect he doesn't take tyres. Yeah, I'm a bit confused as to why Ethan Bass decided to take tyres there. Maybe he forgot to unset them.
Yeah. Seems the most likely explanation. Is 23 seconds of stationary time for Harold Sadler. That brings him out of the pits, just ahead of Shane Bowen.
Well then, Bowen, of course, yet to come in for a second stop, along with Will Leslie and Eric Antilli behind. Thomas O'Leary continuing to make his way through here, yet to take his second stop too. Back up into 4th place now, and setting some pretty quick times there, almost matching his fastest lap of the race so far, and taking big chunks of time out of Cameron Dance.
Going to be a very intriguing finish to this race, as everyone continues for another lap, except, well, Campbell does. Hins is into the lane. Cameron Dance continues on. O'Leary comes in. So they're really split here.
Rubbing my hands together, because we're going to see some massive shuffling of positions here, depending on how long these guys end up stopped for. With everyone else continuing on an extra lap, it's going to be a disadvantage as Jack Stiles comes in. And he was behind O'Leary for position. Bit of a ways behind with the pace that O'Leary was showing, and Simon Mazzomo following Jack Stiles in. Those two have been together all race so far.
It looked like Mazzomo had fallen away from Stiles a bit, judging by the gap between them on pit entrance. Bearing in mind you always generally gain a bit on pit entrance too, so Stiles has done a good job in recent laps to pull away from his teammate.
He has indeed. Stadler makes his way past both of them as Avatar Auto Racing Shane Bowen gets in there as well. Dwayne Burns has already taken his second pit stop, and he was with Bowen before, as Hins is now out of the box. That's a nice short stop there for him. 18 seconds. How long will it be for Thomas O'Leary? We'd expect about the same.
Well, that was 5 seconds shorter than Stadler's stop for Thomas Hinz. O'Leary's is a second longer than Hinz. So Stadler might lose out here. A 5 second longer stop. Where's Hinz rejoined?
He's rejoined in 4th, just behind Stadler.
So Stadler hangs on.
But for how long? This is right back to what we were seeing at the very start of the race with Hinz trying to get past Harold Stadler. Cameron Dance not a part of the picture again just yet. He's still got to come in.
There's Blake Neck. That's how much he's lost out.
Yeah. Yeah, that decision to take tyres has really cost him there. As our leader, Sean Campbell, into the lane now. That's lane time that we were looking at there. It seems that Antilli has only been in for 17 seconds in the box, and 21.2 seconds stop time for Eric Antilli there. He's going to rejoin, I think, in about 15th position, maybe 16th, with Alexander Sheridan potentially entering the picture at some point. But Blake Neck and Matt Andrews now. This is a fight for position. Both of these guys have come in for the final time, and it's an out-and-out race between them. Neck leading this race for a portion in the middle phase. How many positions can he make up before the end? He doesn't have much time to waste here, and there's still quite the gap ahead to the likes of Thomas O'Leary and Will Leslie, even further up.
Campbell, a very short stop.
Oh yeah.
Too short?
19.4 seconds I'm seeing stop time there, so that's consistent with what we've seen so far from everyone. So
it just looks short to me.
Well, he should filter back into the lead once Dance comes in. And as we see Leslie in the lane here.
Got a very large gap over Harold Stadler because Campbell already through the chicane. Stadler's still on the Camel straight. Back on board with Blake Neck then. Trying to find his way by Matt Andrews. They're still up, going out of the source. So Blake Neck will be ruling, taking his tyres. How much time do we decide that taking tyres cost you?
An extra 30 plus seconds, apparently, we're hearing from our director. So that is quite the amount of time to lose as Neck in the draft now of Andrews. They've got a lap car to deal with there as, Blake Neck, one side of the car on the grass, has to pull out of the manoeuvre. Goodness me. I don't blame Matt Andrews for doing that. Wanted to give the lap car as much space as possible. Blake Neck is smelling blood now. Could he have a run up the inside at Bruxelles? No defense there from Andrews, and Neck up the inside. Does he keep it in line? He does indeed, and that is move done for Neck back into the position where he started.
If he hadn't have taken tyres, he would be ahead of Harold Stadler, I think.
Yeah, I would say, as Dance is now in the lane himself from the lead. So Campbell and Stadler will filter through to first and second as Leslie and Bowen are dealing here with lap cars. 28th position, Jake Fox in the Ferrari had just come out of the pits. So that battle between Leslie and Bowen going to continue here in the final 19 minutes of the Spa 2.4. Dance has yet to come into his box here, but Campbell just gradually making up the pace here as Dance finds his lollipop man and should hopefully come to a stop with an incident-free pit service.
Dance might be a little bit disappointed with how this race is playing out.
Those slowdowns would have been key.
Yeah, but he's not contended for the race lead at all. By his standards, he's just been a bit slow, hasn't he?
And Hinz is going to very easily make his way past him here into third. Could Dance even lose fourth out of this with Thomas O'Leary now 8 seconds behind. Yeah, should be just. Yeah. Out onto the Kemmel straight he comes, and it looks like that's going to be very easily held there for Cameron Dance, but O'Leary still on a good run of pace here.
And on fresher tyres. I reckon O'Leary might get him by the end of the race.
It will be interesting to see. O'Leary taking everything out of it.
You have to keep an eye on that then. Dance going to be looking in his mirrors with 17 minutes remaining of Major Series Spa 2.4. Shane Bowen and Will Leslie of 8/10 separating them. As they come through the source, a good exit from Will Leslie might set him up for a move at the end of the Camel Straight. It's amazing the amount of ground you can make up from the source to the chicane.
Yeah, especially if you nail this rise up the hill, which they both do. Leslie just taking enough out of the curb to not get a slowdown as Jake Manhire and Jonathan Bean. Another battle forming here on track, and Manhire up 7, Bean down 6. There's a slowdown there for Shane Bowen, and that's going to be Will Leslie right on by, and Bowen then having to defend from the lap car. Dwayne Burns going to filter in behind them there as well. So in the end, Will Leslie pipping both of the Avatar Auto Racing boys. And they won't be too happy with how that's gone for them, but they're still on for a very consistent position in the midfield as Bain tries to defend here from Jake Manhire. They've got... oh no! Our round goes Jonathan Bain, and that's one of the Fitstyle Porsches making their way through as well.
So much.
Yeah. Up in 9th place is Mizomo at the moment. Thomas Hinz, though, starting to catch up to Harold Stadler here. Last lap, Hinz was 0.2 faster. So let's see if he can have a lob here at 2nd place at the very end.
We've got Hinz catching Stadler and O'Leary catching Cameron Dance. Podium, far from settled in this one. John Campbell, bar laps traffic, didn't have too many challenges towards the finish for himself. Oof, I cannot get the image of that being Colonel Sanders on the side of Hinz's car out of my head, and it is making me very hungry.
Oh yes. Starting to feel a bit of a hankering for those 11 secret herbs and spices as Newton and Bales continue their fight here. Bales, of course, having dropped Brad Klink now, focusing ahead for 17th position potentially, and Newton's been able to keep it consistent here in the middle stage to late stage of this race, but it seems that Bales is just getting more and more pace out of that car as the race goes on.
A lot of drivers seem to be getting better as the race goes on, don't they? As you mentioned, Mitchell Bales. Because normally you see everyone sort of fall off a little bit just by way of natural loss of focus, and you lose that little raw edge, peak performance, you know what I mean? But yeah, some of them really excel in endurance mode. Thomas O'Leary is really excelling with his fresh tyres. He's still 14 seconds off where he was when he took the fresh tyres, running P2. Scott Newton's picked up a slowdown down the order, ahead of Bales and Plank.
Looks to me like Bales has made his way through there, and that shows how brutal the slowdown is for Newton. I think that might have been at the top of the hill. As we check back in here on the Lamborghini of Thomas O'Leary, trying to make his way back up into a competitive position at the top of the field. At this rate, he won't be able to get 3rd place back as Dance goes defensive.
No, O'Leary. O'Leary gets out of the toe. That was... Yeah, he doesn't want to close in too early on Dance. Do you reckon that paint job is intentionally meant to look like the rear of the car is permanently damaged on Dance's car? It looks like
Maybe.
It's got no rear on it. Look.
Yeah, it's a little void of black paint there. Whoa, that was quite the zoom. And it does seem that, oh, Dance a bit slow there out of Lacombe. Down the inside into Malbert, he goes Thomas O'Leary, and it looks like that might be position done. He goes defensive versus Dance, but manages to get the move done back up into 4th. So
That was the
Whatever-
least fight I've ever seen from Dance in my life.
Yeah. Usually we'd expect Dance to really force the issue in a defence. He's usually very good in race conditions, but yeah, this round of the majors has not turned out the best for our championship leader. He's just been slightly off pace relative to the leaders. He's taken a couple of slowdowns along the way, and O'Leary, of course, on the fresher tyres, just starting to skip away from him now. Meanwhile, the battle for second, Harold Stadler and Thomas Hinz. Looks like Hinsey hasn't quite been able to make up the gap any further.
Yeah. Cameron Dance, I think his confidence is knocked a bit, isn't it? He's just had a terrible week. I mean, he's lost out on a car he's supposed to be one of the best in, which is the Formula V, of course. He lost out in round one of that in the opening round of the new season on SimSpeed.
Lost out to you.
To some much better drivers who beat him square. And, so his confidence is clearly knocked from that, and it's carried over to the major series, I would say.
Oh my goodness. Oh dear. Of course, Ryan taking the win in one of the races at Red Bull Ring in Aussie Car Formula V, as that's Ethan Bass on the replay here, making the pass there on Mazzomo as he tries to make up positions. Checking back in with Blake Neck versus Cameron Dance. Next starting to make up some time here, but with only 11 minutes to go. It was 2 seconds on the last lap. Of course, Dance had to deal with O'Leary on that particular lap, but I don't think there's enough time here for Neck to make up the time.
No. I would agree with that assumption.
Still pretty good pace here from Blake Neck in the final stages, of course. He's in the same boat as O'Leary. He has fresher tyres than the rest of the field, and seems with everyone now taking their final pit stop, this is basically on-track action to the very end here at Spa.
With 10 minutes left, if you're Sean Campbell, what's your mindset like, Chris?
I'd say just keep it on the track, keep it out of the grass, out of the barriers, and you should be able to come away with a good victory here. But foremost on his mind, I think, will be any traffic that he may or may not be coming up on, because I think he'll be aware that Harold Stadler has got Thomas Hinz to worry about here. That battle continuing for second. So Campbell, I think, in cruise mode at the moment.
Probably a mode he's been in for quite some time, to be honest. 1 second separating our two minor placings on the podium. Hinz has spent a lot of time looking at the back of the cars throughout this race. Certainly the back of Fitstyle cars race, he's been behind them. Well, pretty much the whole race, hasn't he?
Yeah, he spent a lot of time looking at those TechSense rear bumpers. But I think Hinz can be very happy with his performance here, especially with the issues that Cameron Dance has suffered. That could be crucial for the championship fight in the second half of the year. This is a long and arduous championship as the majors, and varied car and track combos throughout the season. So it's the most versatile drivers who come out on top, and you'd say that Hinz and Dance, both very versatile drivers, but one of them having decidedly better luck than the other today.
Championship is going to take an interesting turn after this round, isn't it? Thomas Hinz, has he done enough to leapfrog Cameron Dance in the championship points? Will a move into second place be the decisive move in the championship table? Thomas Hinz. So we're only about 20 points apart coming into today's event. And there's only a handful of rounds left to go this season as well, so... Oh, what are you doing out there, Cameron?
Oh. Righto.
And who on? Cameron went pretty wide.
He did indeed. And at the current rate, it seems that Blake Neck is going to get him. It looks like Cameron just had a little bit of a wiggle in the rear coming into Puon. It's a very, it's a rear limited section of the circuit there. Back end, if it breaks away, then you're going to lose a lot of time. So Cameron, he's continuing. He's managed to keep it out of the wall crucially, but at this rate, it seems Neck is well on his way as Thomas Hinds through the bus stop chicane now right onto the back of Harold Stadler. Only a couple of car lengths between these two. You see how hard Hinds is pushing, just looking at the wheel work coming into these corners. Keep it nice and smooth into La Source. Straighten out the wheel so you get a nice straight line exit. But Stadler getting a slightly better run out of the corner. It could all come Hinds' way once they get out of Rouge and Radillon.
I think he's going to have to defend the inside here. Snaking his way down the straight. Stadler is trying to keep Hinds out of his draft. It works to an extent. Hinds boldly shows the nose, trying to force an error from Stadler there in the braking zone. He was clearly not close enough to make the move, but you can still make that car in front second guess what you're doing.
Well, through the middle sector, I don't know if there's going to be much chance of a move unless Stadler makes a mistake, and with Hinds as close as he is, Harold's going to be looking over his shoulder quite a bit at the moment. Nice and clean through Puon from the two of them, both keeping it within track limits there, well within. You can use quite a bit of the curb in the middle of the corner. Hinsey has a brief look there into Fagnier, just moving around in Stadler's mirrors, trying to psych him out.
Needs to exert a bit of patience here, Hinds. He's clearly quicker than him. He's so quick, he just needs to... Well, he doesn't need to push at all. He can just stay behind him easily through the corners, toe up behind him on the straights, and slingshot by into the braking zone. This isn't the place to do it in Blanchimont. Maybe not even the chicane. But get a good run through here, and then through La Source, and he can make the move. At the end of the Camel Straight, he goes for the big dive, late on the brakes, into the chicane. Stadler fights and squeezes him onto the apex. They may have made a little bit of contact there. Stadler holds on.
Yeah, Hinsey was sent very wide in the second part of the chicane there, which meant he's lost a good amount of that time that he gained there on Stadler. So they'll have to have another run at that in maybe a couple of laps' time if Hinsey can keep up the pace. Just done a little bit of mental maths here. In a single class race in the Majors Series, third, where Thomas Hinds is, he'll get 43 points. Cameron Dance, running in fifth, is going to get 39 points. So Hinds is not going to take the lead of the championship if he stays in this position, or I think even if he passes Stadler for second, but he will definitely decrease the gap by 4 or 6 points. So points gap will be under 20 between the two of them going into the next round. Dance might lose another spot, which will cost him a further point in the standings if Blake Neck can catch up to him.
Thomas Hinds may gain a spot. So that points differential for this race may yet increase even further. Blake Neck just a couple of seconds away now from Cameron Dance. Thomas Hinds still keeping the pressure on Stadler. I'm a little bit surprised he hasn't been able to get by him. Maybe having a look at places he should have been, it's costing him some time. The areas where he should be able to get by him. That look there, it's compromised his exit. Costs him a little bit of time.
Getting into the gravel there on the exit of Stavelot. It hasn't harmed his run too much, though.
See, if he hadn't had a look on the inside for that corner, and he just set himself up for a nice exit. He may have been able to, well, he would have had a much better exit out of those two corners. Probably would have very easily towed up the inside of Blanchimont. Would have been risky, but would have had an easier move.
Yeah, well, it's only a couple of laps to go now, so if there's time to make that kind of risky move, it is now. So there should be 2 laps to go now for our leader, Sean Campbell. Should be taking the white flag on the next lap. All still to play for here for second place, as checking back in with the battle between Neck and Dance. Neck has brought it into a second now for 5th place. And Dance falling off the wagon a bit in terms of pace, as he has. Certainly a chance here of Neck getting back into the top 5, as, oh my goodness, that is Eric Tilly very wide on the exit of Pouon, letting Alexander Sheridan go. It was a good qualifying performance from Antilli, as, oh no, that's a slowdown for Thomas Hins. He's lost quite a bit of time there to Stadler, now 3.2 seconds, and O'Leary could potentially get onto the podium here if Hins doesn't get back on pace.
Blake Knapp just did a stunning lap, a 1:16.9. Puts him within a second now of Cameron Dance. It was 2.3 seconds quicker than Cameron that last lap from Blake.
Wow. What a time. And Ethan Bass in these late stages still showing that were it not for taking tyres in his second stop, he would be right up there with these guys, because Bass has set a 2:16.8. Those fresher tyres obviously playing a part in that, but Bass much further down the order than he would like to be. But Dance and Neck properly together now through Pouon, and you see that Neck is just gaining a bit here on the exit of Pouon. And Dance will go defensive into Fagnier. Will Neck be able to carry the momentum around the outside? He's going to have a go at it, side by side on the entry into the second phase of the corner. And Neck briefly up into the top 5, but can Dance come back at him at Campus Corner? No, he backs out of it, and Neck is through into the top 5.
Dance did everything he could to hold it around the outside. He threw it in there, but the rears just weren't able to give him the grip, and he was sliding his way through. And he had the snap of oversteer on the exit, cost him the ground he needed to stay on the inside for the next corner, but he's still there on the slipstream. He could have another crack at the chicane. As we take the final lap, by the way, up at the front with your race leader, Sean Campbell, off the road. One of the NFR cars. Virtual Racing School replay of that.
And we're hearing this is a big hit here for Daniel Stevens in the McLaren. So has he made a mistake in the middle of Lacombe, or has it happened here at the entry? Let's see then. Onto the curb, gets the direction change in, and oh dear, a little bit too hard there on the exit, got caught in the grass and heavy into the barriers there for Daniel. Back down in 18th now as a result of that. Thomas O'Leary versus Thomas Hins. Can the gap be made up on the final lap? If there's a slowdown for Hins at some point, which is unlikely in the middle sector, O'Leary could certainly get him. But Ethan Bass as well, catching up to Jack Stiles for 8th place, trying to get just one more position here on the final lap. They are bumper to bumper on the exit of La Source, and Bass might be a bit too close here to get a proper run down the Kemmel Straight. He might have to back off through a Rouge and Radillon. Let's see then, up the hill they go. And Bass should have the draft here on the Mercedes if he nails that exit. What will Stiles do on the run down to Lacombe? He stays middle of the road, trying to defend from his teammate. A bit of weaving here, stays dead in centre for a brief moment. Bass gets alongside into the braking zone though, and is through. Will he be able to maintain it? Has he overcooked it? Maybe just slightly, but he's managed to keep the car ahead. So that is position 1 there for Ethan Bass, as Thomas Hens now have to start thinking about Thomas O'Leary here on the final lap, but not going to be much time left. They've just got a couple of corners to go. There's going to be a couple of corners to go for Sean Campbell here. What a drive it has been for the Fitstyle Motorsport Audi. Pole position, led most of the race apart from a brief period in the middle stage, and a well-deserved victory for Campbell. He had the edge over everyone today.
Very, very good drive. Just never looked beatable, did he? And P2. Harold Stadler, a very good drive as well. Thomas Hinds just gets P3. O'Leary nearly got him in the end.
Goodness me, that's 5 positions made up for Thomas Hinds in the midst of that. Congratulations to him. O'Leary almost making it dead even to where he started. But man, what a great result here for Fitstye Motorsport. It's a 1-2 for their overall team, as it's still going on here between Brad Clenk and Mark Newton, who is still one of the biggest movers in the field, the biggest mover, still up 21 positions from where he started. Could he make it 22? It's all yet to be decided for them as Clenk goes defensive into Pouon. This could get feisty. Oh, have a look at the run there from Newton out of Pouon. Not able to take advantage of it though, coming into Fagnier. Clenk will stay defensive here. Will Newton be able to pull off what Blake Neck did before? He's just ahead, coming into the left-hander and gets the move done. It's been a fantastic drive from Mark Newton, hasn't it?
Up 22 spots now in this race. What a stunning drive from Mark Newton.
Daniel Stevens a little bit twitchy there. I think he's still carrying some damage from when he hit the wall. And goodness me, he's barely keeping that thing on track. So much force going through that wheel. And it's a little bit off center too. That McLaren will not be fun to drive right now. Runs wide through the final chicane, but manages to get it done. So Daniel Stevens is going to come home here in 18th position. A lot of what might have beens from that race for Daniel, but he can at least come away knowing that he was able to make it to the finish. And there is Mark Newton securing 19th position at the end of it. Meanwhile, Sean Campbell stopped on track with Harold Stadler. Bit of a team photo opportunity here for these two. And Fitstye will be very happy with this result indeed.
Definitely will. Another amazing team performance from them, and not led this time by Cameron Dance, but Sean Campbell, the man at the front.
Well, let's take a look at the race results then, as everyone has now crossed the line. It is Campbell and Stadler, your top two. Thomas Hinds completing the podium with Thomas O'Leary in 4th place. Blake Neck will round out the top 5 after that late move on Cameron Dance. Brilliant round the outside of the first part of Fagnier. Matt Andrews is going to beat Ethan Bass to the finish, with Bass taking tyres in the second stop, with Jack Stiles and Simon Mazzomo rounding out the top 10. I tell you what, there's so many Fitstye cars in there. It's been a fantastic day for them.
Certainly has. Big day for their team points effort. Dwayne Burns home at 11th, ahead of Will Leslie, Shane Bowen, Alexander Sheridan and Eric Antilli, your top 15. And Mitchell Bales is 16th, ahead of Scott Newton, Daniel Stevens, Mark Newton and Brad Clenk make up your top 20. And also the last car on the lead lap, Brad Clenk.
Indeed, Adrian Steffen, the first car a lap down here, making up 4 positions. It was up 8 for JM Thomas, with Gavin Barber coming home in 23rd. Then Dean Alessi and Jake Manhire in the 2 BMWs rounding out the top 25. Jake Fox will end up beating Peter Vostrel to the finish, with Bain, Sorensen and Mookie rounding out the top 30 there.
Adam Cahill, Sean O'Hara, Johnny Bell, Sean Rees and Connor Brown were the last 5 to finish this race, and then our retirements, of which there weren't many. Really good number of drivers finished this one from 42 starters. Only 7 retirees. Philip Morton, Pierre Cousin, Dean Moll, Damon Stockton, Phil Otto, Danny Vassell and Ryan Jacardier McCarthy all retiring from this one, as the Texans Fitstye cars are doing a bit of a formation now on the racetrack.
They are indeed, which is really nice to see. I tell you what, this would make for a fantastic screenshot, but we're going to take a look at the next round of this series. The Southern 500 at Darlington. They're going to be jumping into the stock cars for this one at one of the most difficult ovals in the United States. Too tough to tame is Darlington's motto. Will the International Majors crew be able to tackle the magnificent Darlington Raceway. That is the next round, and it's going to be coming up in just a couple weeks' time here on SimSpeed TV. But there is the formation from the Fitstye cars. What a brilliant round it has been for this team, and they can certainly come away with this with a great amount of confidence. And it's going to be crucial in their battle with Kinetic. Kinetic was in the lead in the team's championship coming into this race, but with this, I think Fitstye might be on the verge of taking the lead back. Either way, that's going to bring to an end proceedings for this broadcast here on SimSpeed TV. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. It's been a fantastic night of racing here in virtual Belgium with the International Majors crew. Don't forget to join us in a few weeks' time for the Southern 500 at Darlington. It was Sean Campbell taking victory from Harold Stadler and from Thomas Hins, and the championship gap with Cameron Dance finishing in 6th is now down under 20 points. What is going to happen in this second half of the year in the International Majors Series? You'll be able to catch it all here live on SimSpeed TV. Make sure to go to thp.org to support the Hunger Project. That is the charity we're supporting for this round. And we hope that you have a good one out there in the real world. But for myself, Reese Gardner, here in the commentary box with Ryan Jones and Jay Kennedy on production, it is goodbye and have a good one.
Fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's got rid of the outside of both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my God. Oh, big crash. Oh my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no. That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?